Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 30 Podcast. Joining me today is Ginger Prime, aka Brian. How you doing?
Doing good, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I want to thank you for coming on the show. You're my fourth show, third guest. My
Yeah.
first guest came on twice in a row, and it was awesome. So I do appreciate you for taking the time out of your busy schedule and coming out and talking to me for a bit. So
Yeah, I think I'm definitely like inside baseball. There is some wife a honeydew credit that will be coming
oh,
due
I'm
after
sure
the
because it's
show.
Valentine's Day. Yeah,
Well,
thank you, Mrs. Ginger
is
Prime.
not just Valentine's Day because my wife she is super frugal as just a human being.
Mm,
So she is not a gifts girl. She's like, do not buy me
that's how my wife is.
anything.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go and clean the house and do some
Sure.
niceties around the house, etc. And yeah, that's the goal. But yeah, we got 6 kids, bro. Like we aren't going out to dinner. We'll
Exactly,
go out.
exactly.
We'll go out next week when there isn't a premium tax on babysitters and food.
Yeah. So this podcast, Chad, if you're joining me for the first time, my name's 30 and Still Gaming, or 30 NSG, or Mike. And we do a podcast on Wednesday nights when I have a guest. And we also do another podcast on Thursday nights called Generation X Gaming that I've been doing for 10 years. On this podcast, it's different. It's not a gaming podcast. We do talk about games, but I bring people on here because I want to get to know them. I want to get to know, because I'm a content creator. He's a content creator. Other people that watch content creators just know us for the actual what we do, right? I would like to get a little bit more in depth with you. And obviously, I'm not going to push the envelope too much to get into your personal life, but I just want to know, like, where'd you start from as far as into gaming, and then what made you get into YouTube, and then how do you juggle stuff as a father of 6 and you have hobbies of a stand-up comedian. So this is what we're doing on the show today, chat. So if you like this, make sure you hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button. If you'd like to go above and beyond that, become a member as little as $5. So, Brian, when we were on the podcast, on Lono's podcast months ago, right, and you said you did stand-up, I don't know if you remember me telling you, I was like, man, I always wanted to do stand-up comedy. I was like,
Yeah, a lot of people say that. A lot of people say they've always wanted to do it and they don't. And I talked myself out of doing it for 15 years.
I'm
And
close
it
to
was
that.
when
I think I'm close to that. Yeah.
right. And it was during lockdown that I was like just like perusing my notes of all these jokes that I've written ever since like I was in my 20s. Not most of them weren't good jokes, but it was just like, oh, it's a funny premise, or here's an idea. And then I was like, all right, well, once we get out of lockdown, like I'm just gonna go do it. And with the idea that maybe I'll hate it, and then that way at least I'm
At
like,
least you
all
tried.
right, like I tried, I found out that I didn't like it, no big deal. But then I loved it. Like it was just like it is 2 years officially since I've been a stand-up comic, and it's weird that I get paid to tell people jokes. Like it doesn't make sense.
That's
It's
awesome.
not a lot of money, but
No.
it's still enough money that it's just like, oh wow, you get paid that much for comedy? Cool.
Well, that's what YouTube is for me, right? I get
Yeah.
paid to do this, right? It's crazy,
I'm
right?
like, all right, this is crazy. It doesn't make sense. But so it's been 2 years, and it's like I tell you, like in all sincerity, like being on stage doing stand-up comedy is like really the first time that I feel normal in my life. And it's just like I've always just been this weird guy, like like people, like I have like really nice traits about me, but it's like like I'm a lot sometimes, to deal with. I'm very driven. So to answer your third question out of the kind of the opening, like I generally get up around 4:30 in the morning and get started.
Right.
And I work a lot, try to make sure that I'm making enough money for the kids. Content creation is an outlet in that regards, and I found some success in that. Obviously, focusing around guides, and then my analytical breakdowns, which usually start off with people mad at me because I'm telling them how I see everything playing out, and then years later, them coming back and saying, "Holy freaking crap! How did you see all these dots?" And that's just one of the things that I do, like as a software engineer, which pays more than comedy, but then also as just somebody who like
just
loves
barely,
video
though, right?
games.
Just barely.
Well, man, there are some that comedy pays way more than I've ever seen, and I'm not even in like the upper echelon of like bringing in insane money. But one day, maybe, who knows? I've been saving for retirement since I was 20, so I do hope that one day I can kick back, relax, and like people ask me like, do you want to be a full-time content creator? And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, where I rely on content creation as my only source of revenue? Well, in an ad-driven business, that is just dangerous. Like, it's just ridiculous that you like. I can't, in my mind, especially with kids. If I was 20 years old, I'd be like, hell yeah, let's go. But with kids, I'm like, there's no like there months might be cool and some might be like, oh my gosh, there was nothing. And so that's why like membership and like I believe that we'll see a return in terms of content and media
Mm.
to that. Like if you don't pay for your news, you end up really paying for your news
Right.
because it's just ad driven, sensationalized BS, you know. Yeah, so I have a like an addiction to making videos. I think essentially that's probably the best way I could describe it. Like I love talking about video games. I love playing video games, and I'm very blessed to have people who like my content. I was on King Thrasher's podcast, and one guy was just like, but like he's trying to dog on my like my style and how I review things because he's like one of the things I do is I
He,
always try to figure out
he wants
who
to
a
hate
game might be
things,
for.
right? He wants you to be
Well,
mad.
he does no, he thinks that I was like I was letting outside forces influence my own opinion.
I gotcha.
And I was like, no, like when you're looking to try and figure out who a game is for, I like to go and get other opinions, but I have already formed my opinion
Sure.
first. And then I like to understand how other people think about it because
I'm the same way.
yes, you're coming to for my opinion, but like and it was all based off of the phrase that I said, I think Forspoken is an excellent $40 game. Now I bought it at full price. I actually enjoyed the game. It got dogged on, and this ties into the console wars in my opinion, and also ties into like Square Enix not supporting GeForce Now, which I continue to shake my fist and be like, come on, Square, let's go.
Curse
But
you.
curse. Well, they do it now with Octopath 1 and 2. And so I'm like, come on, just add your games to this service, please. But so it's like, yeah, and then like it was interesting because in my worldview, like what I just said is very positive, but people heard that in a negative. They're like, oh, you're saying, it's only worth $40. I was like, no, the general population rejected this game. And I think a lot of people reject the game because it launched at $70.
Yeah.
But everybody that I've talked to who has gone back and actually tried the game, some guy was like, I picked it up for $5 or I picked it up for $20 and they're having a really good time. So 40 seems to be the median price point where games kind of really do just thrive.
Yeah, I mean, look at two games that came out this year: Pal World and
Mhm.
Helldivers 2. Both $40
Helldivers
price
2.
tag, right? Or $30 and $40, right?
30 and 40, yeah,
And
exactly.
they're smashing it, dude. They're smashing it.
Oh, Enshrouded. Let's just toss them
Enshrouded,
in as a
yeah.
positive. Exactly. Like, and the thing is that when we start to look at this generation of gaming, this is something that I feel like Lono misses. This is something I feel a lot of content creators who are very pro console are missing right now. And it's that there's a lot of frustration. There has been a lot of frustration with this generation. Yes, 2023, we got a lot of really great games, but it took 3 years into the generation, obviously due to
Because
the
of the
worldwide
lockdown.
events.
Yep.
Just that is one factor, but it's not the only
No,
factor. The
no.
other factor is Moore's second law. Moore's first law is the doubling of processing power every 2 years, et cetera, et cetera. The second one is that cost going up exponentially as well. And we kind of have seen that with this generation because games take longer to make, bigger
Yep.
cost, less innovation, which ultimately is why I think you're seeing the $30 and $40 game thrive. Ultimately, you're seeing these independents thrive, but AAA is in this real tough spot because like Sony having it leaked that they were getting, 320, I think it even up to 380 million
for the
to make
game.
Spider-Man 3, a single player standalone game. Tip of the hat. I respect the hell out of Sony for greenlighting that money. But you know that Disney Marvel's getting a cut of that.
You got the Disney
there's
tax
so
on that.
and so you have to get such mass market transitions, and people look at the console sales numbers absolutely incorrectly. They see like, oh yeah, PlayStation sold 54 million. That's incredible. But why can't nobody beat the PS2? And the only things that get
less
close,
gamers back then.
Less gamers back
less
then.
gamers back
Much,
then.
much
much
less.
less. Much
Meaning we've seen a massive influx of gamers that aren't adopting console.
Right.
And so when you start to think about it, I don't know. I think the future is going to be the timed exclusive, where it's like
I agree.
it comes out on a platform. Because from a developer, like one of the things that the absolute correct viewpoint is, if you have to release multi-platform, that's much harder than just focus targeting on one platform. That is 100% correct. But a timed exclusive also gives you a lot of bandwidth. And Microsoft doesn't have a single exclusive
Right.
ever since they went with Play Anywhere. And because of that one shift, people are like, I, just like you, because I've been listening to you and I both been preaching the message. It's like they are going in a completely different direction.
Yeah, and I don't
They
understand why people don't see this, right?
well, I think it's
They
because
did it
there's a
back in the
nostalgia
80s
base.
when Apple was making products. Microsoft's
Yeah.
like, yeah, we're just gonna make the software, and they're like, what? What? You're not. There's no money in the software part. You got to make the hardware. That's what Apple and Windows were fighting for in the past. And then look,
Mhm.
and they both work. Apple makes the product and the software, and they were the number one company. And now Microsoft, who just makes, obviously they have a lot of different avenues out there for security and whatnot, but they make
Yeah,
software, and now they're the number one company in the world. So
yeah.
I don't know why it's hard to play. Before we dive into more gaming, I want to go back to
Okay.
the comedy aspect a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
Sure. I'll talk about comedy all
When
day.
when you were growing up, who were some of the comedians you watched when you were younger that
Yeah.
inspired you to go, hey, you know what? I think I want to try that out.
I always wanted, like, I always kind of felt I wanted to do it. So I obviously like the big comics during my time. You have Jerry Seinfeld. You've got, why am I going to say Ace Ventura? Why am
Jim
I
Carrey.
drawing a blank? Jim Carrey, so good. And then you look at like the redneck, comedy tour with Jeff Foxworthy,
Foxworthy, yeah.
Bill White, yeah, and then and I'm just drawing blanks on names because
I
I
mean, Ron
suck at
White,
names.
is that what you're talking about?
Ron White, thank
Ron
you.
White,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so it's like I read Bill Engvall and man, I forget the guy who he played the truck in Cars. So I
Oh,
forget his name, but he was
I work
great.
I worked with
Mater
him.
is the character's name. You can clearly see the dad in me. Like,
Is his
oh
name?
yeah, that's
I forget what his name is.
yeah. We haven't seen a lot of them recently. And then this new round of comics, like with Shane Gillis and so many more, are just like phenomenal.
I worked with Bill
So I've been
Anvil and stuff we did a movie together. I was the camera operator. It was called Bait Shop. It was with him and Jeff, or I'm sorry, Billy Ray Cyrus and Bill Anvil. It was about a fishing
yeah,
movie, and the guy you're talking about, I forget his name, Larry the Cable Guy.
yeah,
That's
there's a
it
cable
is.
guy.
Yes, I worked with him as
Yeah,
well.
chat.
Funny,
Melrose, thank you.
funny guy, man. Larry the Cable Guy. I don't know why I forgot his name. Right? Obviously, he's doesn't sound like that at all in real life. Like when you talk to
Yeah,
him, he's not that super redneck that he plays a character for. I loved George Carlin growing up, and it was funny to me because
Harlan is great.
when I was a kid, I didn't really
Yeah,
understand a lot of his jokes, but to me, it was interesting the way he used to deliver it and stuff like that. So as I got older,
Richard Pryor.
yeah, that when I
Yeah,
got older and started watching it, I even respected it even more. Like watching it now as a mid 40s, going back and watching Carlin stuff or Pryor stuff
mm,
or Eddie Murphy stuff, it hits so much different now. So when you were looking at comedy and the lockdown happened, you said that's what
mm.
really made you think about it, right? Like,
Yeah. It was like, okay, well, life's too short. I keep agonizing over this, right? I was in therapy for anxiety, and my therapist and anger. My therapist was like, yeah, like because like I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing it. Go do it. Just go do it. And so it was in lockdown. This was like years after
mhm.
therapy, and I'm like, all right. And so I actually messaged him after I was like, I did it, and he's like, good. And I was like, I like it. I'm gonna keep going. And it turns out comedy, really cheap therapy. It's like,
Well, that's why I talk every morning for 2 hours. It's super
yeah.
cheap therapy. Um, when you got up for the first time and you actually, family's a big part, right? Like, was your wife obviously supportive of you to
No,
go? No, she wasn't.
no. Now she supports me in going, but she will not go to see
Okay,
my comedy. And
I got that.
I've joked that I'm like, I'm gonna get another comedian to run my entire set. We're gonna film him, and then that's just gonna show up in your feed someday. And then if you laugh, then I know. But it's she's very and she's a very empathetic person. Like as a trait, it's a really nice trait, but it's she suffers like whenever I have to get up and speak. And for me, getting up and talking isn't any problem whatsoever. Like she says my superpower is I just don't care what people think about me. And sometimes she wished that I did just a little bit. And I'm
Right,
like, I just don't.
you just don't
You
care.
know,
Yeah.
people people try to cancel me a couple times already, and I mean they haven't succeeded, which sucks because like as a comedian the best thing that could happen to me
It's getting
is
canceled.
getting canceled. It's like, yeah, please, like let's go, so let's go chat. you
So
know.
so when you went out for the very first time, what was that like? What was it? Were you like going up and you're like, I'm gonna do it? No, no, I'm not gonna do it. No.
No, 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 it was straight up. But it was more of that getting to the place, because it's like there's so many things in life that's just gonna try to stop you from doing things, and that's one of the things. Is like, all right, I just got to get in the room. I just got to, So I went, figured out where I was supposed to stand and put my name in, and then eventually, and like they did like a draw from the hat during this process. So then I had, I didn't know when I was going up, so I was just listening for my name, listening to other comics. And the thing that was really nice and relaxing about that entire experience is all of a sudden, like I said, I felt normal. Like I was hanging out
Right.
with other people. Some people were there for the first time. Some were there professionally doing open mics, and they go around and
Yeah,
do
working on
whatever
material. Yeah, yeah.
and working on material. And we're all just talking and having a really cool time making each other laugh, making jokes and playing around with it. And it felt like it was the first time in my life that I was like, I actually feel normal.
That's cool.
So this is really nice. And so then I got up and I did my 5 minutes and had a lot of fun and got some good laughs and maybe a couple pity laughs. I don't know. The crowd
Right.
was really nice because they actually was in front of a real crowd for the first time. They did it like they had a big show, and then they were like, "Hey, stick around for the open mic." And people did. And then so I got to performing against a real show. Now it's way more streamlined, and I've hit a point in my comedy career that it's literally all about networking. It is all
That's
about
that's how everything is. Yeah.
knowing the show. Who do you know? Do they like you? And then, and then being on time. And so for me, I think essentially one of the challenges that keeps me from getting more shows, because generally I do maybe about a show a month, that's actually like a show, but it ends up being just my like a limited schedule, because they're like, hey, well, we're not going to ask Brian because we know that he's got kids and he's busy, and it's like, okay. But so that's why me and a bunch of the other dad comedians, because we have our own little clique, oh, you're a comedian and you're a dad. You end up going and saying like, why aren't these guys who are single, just going to everything? Like,
Right.
why
Just
aren't you at every
traveling, right?
open
Going
mic?
everywhere. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Paul from Paul Gaming Live asks a question. Do you have any jokes that are off limits?
No, not at all. I think essentially when you look at, and this is just a critique now, they need to be funny jokes. So it's like a lot of people are like, oh, I can joke about anything. Make it a joke. Like you got to find and work the craft to make it
Right.
funny. But no, nothing should be off limits on stage. And that's a big difference, right? Like there is a healthiness to our nature that the internet in and of itself has, I believe, trying to suppress through censorship and fake like what
Right.
is it, virtual
Yeah,
signaling.
being offended
Yeah.
over something.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm offended. Screw you. Grow the hell up
yeah. Right.
and get a life, bro, because nobody cares. If you want to be offended for your internet points,
Yeah.
okay.
Fantastic. Yeah. I say that
You're
all
a,
the
you,
time. I said, you're offended. Nobody cares. No, nothing happens when you're offended. It's just,
yeah.
you have to deal with that yourself.
It is so like, can things be offensive? Of course. Are
Sure.
some of my jokes offensive? Absolutely. But then if you start to actually look at the material and how it's delivered and how it's brought about, it is making fun of the thing, not
Not the person.
promoting
Yes.
the
Right.
thing.
It's the
And
context.
it's the
Context is
context.
everything. Yes.
But that's a part of the fun. And so and it's interesting because taking jokes, you can literally say like, this joke didn't do so well. Well, was it the joke? Like, because the premise is funny. I've talked to comedians about it. It could be the placement of the joke,
Mm.
because one of the things is like, can I set up a joke that requires some context? Like, oh, I need them to know that I'm a dad. I need them to know these things. So can I make jokes that educate the audience, so that when I get to this joke, I don't have all this premise.
Right. So a
Now
joke
I
that
can just
that you start off with might fail the first time you do it, but if you move it to
yeah.
like the middle of your comedy bit, it might hit
Oh,
harder
it might
and
hit
much better.
hard.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a lot of fun to kind of play around with that. But no, I don't think anything should be off limits. I know comics do get kind of nervous because, again, it's a networking thing. So if people are like, oh, that guy's just raunchy, or that guy's just disrespectful, or that guy's, just an absolute jerk, then it's fine. But it's like, no, I think right now, if you go into it and your goal is to make people laugh and you really work on what that means for the joke, because we see it all the time. I do not subscribe to the theory that I can say whatever I want and then be like, it was just a joke, man.
Right.
Right, because like no, but if I'm on stage and I've
Of
written
course.
something
Yeah. Yeah.
and I've worked it, then it's like okay, maybe it didn't work, maybe it did, but I'm not going to subscribe to some kind of category of like I'm going to not talk about something that I think is funny or stupid or silly, like because that it might offend somebody. And I think that's what we're seeing with a lot of like the comedy clubs are just full because I think people are frustrated that they can't
Sure.
bust each other's balls or they can't
Want to have a good
like,
time. They just
hey,
want to go and have a
I
good
just
time,
want
and
to
like,
I just want to be like, all right, and not have to worry about my job getting taken away from me because I liked a tweet. It's like, all right, let's just go. It's like, and so yeah, I do not think anything. And I think whenever you have those golden calves, which is really kind of what they are, these like, oh, these we can't talk about this. Like that needs to have all the attention
right.
until it's like yeah, we're perfectly good on that. So hopefully that answers your question, Pauls.
I used to love. You ever see Bob Saget live?
No, I've never seen him live, but I
I mean,
know his
obviously you can't
comedy was
anymore, but
right,
yeah,
unfortunately.
unfortunately, his comedy was so raunchy. But the
Yeah,
persona that he had on television was this Full
was
House dad, like perfect,
yeah.
like. But
It
his
reminds me of Boogie, where it's like him in real life versus like how he would make his
yes,
videos, and
yes,
outside of his playing his character, like there's he got a lot of kickback because all of a sudden it's like, hey, I only think like because I only see you through this limited window,
right.
and this is how you present yourself, but it turns out you're a complex human being.
Yeah,
It's like
his
okay,
comedy was amazing when you watched it live because you're just like, did that just come out of or what was his? What was the father's name in Full House? Not Tanner. Danny Tanner, wasn't it? Wasn't that what his name was? I think it was. Anyway, I was like, that's not the guy from Full House. I was like, he just said a joke and that was like, woo, way off. But I wasn't offended in any way. It was just, it's hilarious. And when you brought up about no jokes off limits, I mean, Bob Saget was that way, like where he would say something in comedy, and then when you go back to his other job, you would know the difference. And a different time because of social media now. Everyone can film, and I know a lot of comedy
mhm.
clubs are locking the phones up so they can't.
Yeah, and they're locking it down.
Yeah, they're so because it should be. If I go there to pay money to go watch some comedy, let me have a good time there. Why are you trying to, you know,
Yeah. The only review that matters is the laughs you
in the
get in the
room,
room
in the room?
or the groans. And it's like sometimes it's like, yeah, I'm not actually writing this to get a laugh because I want people to go, "Oh," and then I want to be like, "Ah," like there is I don't know, man. I find a lot of love in it. It's a very fun thing and I'm really glad that I got started doing it. And I've been doing it 2 years now officially, and I don't plan on stopping,
So what's
but my
typical when you
wife
go on stage? Is 3 minutes or
my wife
five
wishes I would.
minutes?
Typically is 5. If I do a show, it's anywhere from a 10 to 15 minute spot. And then if you go up to a feature, you'll get 20 to 30. And then
Wow.
a headline will get 30 to an hour.
What's your longest have you done so far?
I go up to 15. And I've also been doing a little bit more hosting, which is a muscle like in and of itself that you have to learn to work. So hosting's been a lot of fun, but I'm still learning on that. And so I hope to have some more hosting gigs because they pay as well. So it's been a lot of fun.
So when you're writing a 5 minute piece, how much content? Because I know in film,
Mhm.
for every minute it's a page a minute basically. So when you're writing jokes and you're writing material, what's that process like, and how long? Like if you have 2 pages worth of that, like
Oh man.
3 seconds of
Yeah.
content, you know what I mean? Or is that
It can be. And so like I do a lot of my writing. Let me just pull my notepad because it's like I got my note app and so I'll keep this next to me pretty much all the time. And then I'll go into like different jokes. So for example, this year I've been trying to better myself and so far I'm down 60 pounds,
okay?
which is really great.
Congratulations.
So thank you. Please don't stop. I'm very hungry. Uh, so it's like the crowd will generally like applaud and celebrate that. So there's like
Right.
even in the
Woo!
pacing,
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes it's like I actually with that joke have built in that kind of response because the follow up is thank you. I need that. I'm very hungry.
Well, they
You know,
also they understand that, so then now you brought them in because they can relate to you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then essentially though with a joke, because like if I just kind of hold up my thing, you can see lots of different bullet points. So this is one joke
Mm,
that can have different directions based off of people's
off the
responses.
reaction, I got you.
So if I like, and this is all then part of the setup. So I could go into like how I lost weight, which I have a joke that it's like it's a healthy dose of Bidenomics and masturbation, for the cardio, guys. Come on. And then I go and I have this joke too. I'll give it to you. Hopefully it's appropriate for your
It's
chat.
fine.
I'm sure they're cool. They're making jokes about Michael Jackson. So
Yeah,
I think we've
it's
pretty
fine.
much
Yeah, we're good.
we're good to go.
We're good.
And so I was like, I tell you this, whoever said that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, they clearly never masturbated more than 4 times in one day. Because that is, you got to work for that one. You got to work for the 4th.
That's
And so
exhausting. That's exhausting.
it's exhausting. Like you gotta do all kinds of things. So that in and of itself goes into that. So like if I go that direction, or I can start making fun of the fat phobic or not, the body positive movement, which the joke that I have right now is like, if you haven't heard about this, it's when a bunch of 30-year-olds who are obese, you die at the age of 40. That's what they do. That's what this is. And there we go. So
thanks for coming.
But yeah,
thanks for the show. Yeah.
it's like, all right, yeah, cool. So yeah, but I'm actually like, yeah, and the thing about also we talk about nothing on limits. I believe there has to, in my mind, not that this applies to comics or comedy, but everybody kind of has their sets of guidelines. I always kind of looked at what is true. It's true that I've lost 60 pounds. Like this is a journey that I'm on. Where are the jokes? Because there's a lot of funny stuff in. So the writing process literally is going around and like, doing normal dad stuff, husband stuff. And, something will happen, right? Where I was scraping poop off the side of the wall. And it wasn't just a little bit of poop. It was a whole wall smear of poop. And that made me think of a joke. So I just quickly wrote it down. And then I've gone back and refined it and added new tags. And essentially the joke, I'll do it if you don't mind, because I love it. I love it. So I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, but back in 2008,
I love shitty jokes, by the way. So
good. Yeah. Back in 2008, there was a great movie that came out. It was called Baby Mama. And in this movie, there's a scene with the actress Maura Tierney, and you got to lock that name in because we're coming back to her in just a second, where she sees her son and he's covered in something. And she looks at him and says, "Is that poop or is that chocolate?" And then she licks his arm. And everybody's like, "Oh my gosh." And I was like, yeah, that was such a funny and interesting moment. But fast forward 15 years later and 6 kids later.
Right.
And I play Is It Poop or Chocolate with my kids all the time. And it's never chocolate. So Maura Tierney deserves an Oscar for that performance. So that's where it's like you bring it back.
That's funny.
I like it. I like that so much. And it's such a fun one because I can always play around with the different pacings. Here I'm doing actually a little bit more. I'm delivering my bits a little bit faster for you just because I think it's more natural as a conversation.
Yeah.
As opposed to on stage, I will sit there and just kind of like for like
awkward
2 seconds,
silence,
like,
pausing and stuff.
Like, yeah, just let everybody kind of catch up. Because that's the thing that was the first lesson that I learned. I was telling joke after joke, and some of my jokes are like really dark, right? So for example, I go, I have a friend, he's got like a dog, he treats it. So like for those of you who are out there that are like, my dogs are just like my kids. I'll agree to it as long as I could put my kids down too. And it's like, and then I went right into the next joke.
Oh, that's a
and
good
then
one. That's
I
a good
was
one.
in the setup of the next joke, and then all of a sudden people start laughing at the previous joke.
Right.
So it's like, all right, I need to, be able to set back and pace this out appropriately,
Yeah. I say this all the time because of writing in Hollywood now. And again, I come from the film background. A lot of the new era of movies, if you notice, there's not a lot of comedies. And the comedies that they don't let the jokes breathe. They just kind of go into the next thing. Even in dramas and stuff like that, even when they say a joke. Have you played Suicide Squad recently?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So did you play through the campaign a little bit and saw like the dialogue and stuff?
I did not. Yeah, I saw the dialogue. I did not finish it. I just didn't I wasn't interested in the game, but because of like the podcast and Kirk, he's like, "Hey, let's review it. If we both go hands on, we can talk about it." And I go,
well, the reason I'm bringing it up,
will play it again. But go ahead.
Yeah, the reason I'm bringing it up is because the comedy in that is like there's like they in one line they talk about like 8 million people dying, and then the next line they have a joke about something stupid within the group itself, right? And it's funny, like it makes you laugh out loud, like a chuckle or whatnot, and it's actually good comedy writing within the premise of what the darkness of what's happening in the world. A lot of movies and a lot of TV shows just miss that. They miss
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
timing of the joke or the pausing and whatnot. And what you're
Well, I
saying
mean,
here,
King Shark, like he had some just moments where he's not even saying anything, but he's just adding so much humor, like the
yes,
whole thing with the hat, and then the call back to the hat was just wonderful, where things are going south, and he's like, "I'm gonna put on my
yeah, I'm gonna put
hat,"
the hat on
which
now.
does
I wish it
nothing.
was an invisible hat right
I
now.
wish
Right?
it
Yeah,
was an invisible hat
yeah.
right now. So I was like there is some, like, that's the thing, like I think the biggest flaw in that game is that they didn't also have another Arkhamverse standalone game
Mm,
between, yeah, at the same time, because like while it's frustrating that they announced Elder Scrolls 6, which we know they're working on Elder Scrolls 6, but they announced it at the same time that they announced Elder Scrolls the mobile game, because a lot of people are like, "Oh man, all these games are just going to go to mobile.
right.
There's just going to be these mobile cash grabs." Okay, yeah, you want to make a mobile game? Not a big deal. We're not abandoning the core player base like Diablo did, right?
Oh, but you don't have
Diablo,
phones.
you don't have phones. Yeah, they're working on Diablo 4, but they don't then go and marry that announcement with, and we're also, for the PC players, for the
Right.
like for the hardcore, Diablo 4 is coming. We'll share more about that with you later. And that essentially, I think, would have saved that BlizzCon from all the drama. And the next year, they announced Diablo 4. So it does feel like they're playing catch up in this case. So back to Suicide Squad, people beloved, love the Arkham series. And then what this just felt like to some people, what I've seen is, hey, this is what I wanted. This is not what I was
I
hoping for.
I mean,
But
I see
all in
it.
all, the game is very polished. Like, the thing I was like, it's visually very beautiful. It feels very polished, but I just don't have the motivation to click play. I want
Well,
to play
that's the
everything else.
problem I have with the game over the people portraying the game is because they're judging it because it's the game it's not, and not the game it is, right? And a lot
Okay.
of people want it to be Batman Arkham, or they want it to be something else, not in the Arkhamverse. But it's like, I think they chose the Arkhamverse because that's their foundation. They can
Mhm.
change and do what they want with that, where DC might not let them do it in the other type of universe. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
going away from that, going into, as a content creator, as a comedian, as a father, right? How the hell, I have one kid, right? And
Mhm.
I'm a stay-at-home dad, right? I'm a stay-at-home dad. I also live on a farm, right? So I also do farm things. Okay, so I take care of my son. I do my stream. I do the content. I weave in and out of when I can make time for my life, my work, and then also my family.
Mhm.
How do you do the balance? How do you, as a father, as a comedian, as a game designer, because we'll talk about that in a second as well.
Mhm.
How do
Yeah.
you how do you balance all of this as a dad?
I don't stream. you know, when it's all said and done, I like maybe I've been doing like these little, what I call lunch and loots. So like they're like a little hour lunch break because I work from home.
Okay.
So it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take an hour off work and I'm gonna play this game for a little bit and hang out and dip in and dip out. And that's why in our little pre-show discussion before we went live, I was like, the thing that to me is so humbling and exciting is that people actually watch the VODs. Like I
Yeah.
go and see that people go
That's what
and
I said. I
check them
watch I
out.
watch your content because I can't watch it live because
Right. Oh yeah, because it's like timing. Like there's a lot of content, but I'm like I'm not actively going out and looking for live content. Like, it's like, okay, I'm usually looking for the videos or clip down or etc. And that's just my preference. And so that's the thing that to me feels very humbling that people do. That it is just like, oh wow, like I don't do that. And then I go and I always wonder, should I do that? It's like,
right.
should I just make sure that I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go listen to this past live broadcast, which is all VOD content. Like everything, it's usually just like I've prepared a video that does X, Y, and Z. Balance wise, I have an editor, and so that is one thing that helps take a lot of work off my plate. That I can toss over there. So I end up just handling kind of news that kind of pops in and pops out. So it's easy to kind of go ahead.
So how does that work? Because I don't have an editor. I kind of do my own thing, right? So you just I understand how editing works. That's not what I'm asking. But
Right.
when you make your content, do you just toss everything over to them and
Yeah.
then make them do it, or you have everything kind of planned out and what you would like it to do?
Yeah, I write these giant scripts that have lots of like, I've been doing a series called State of the Game, where I try to do like a deep dive analytical essay approach.
Hmm.
That's kind of been my 2024 year, focusing in on quality. And then essentially that is what I toss over to them because that takes a lot of work. And generally we try to get out one a week. And so I've been working on a No Man's Sky video, but then they're all teasing this Omega
Yeah,
update, and I'm
Omega's
like,
coming out.
that
Yeah.
information I think is important to the thesis of what my video is about, because it's a No Man's Sky video, but it's also a Light No Fire video, and so it's like there's this, I think now there's this missing component, because and that I think the video from its life would benefit from that, and so I'm going to pivot this week,
Hmm.
try to finish up another script that I've got a bunch of scripts in progress that I want to kind of put the work in and bring the thoughts to. And then I've been doing a little bit of reaction content. Generally speaking, I reach out to the creators and be like, "Hey, do you mind if I react to your content?" And they say, "Sure." I go, "Cool." Just want to like always kind of put that out there, as opposed to like, getting reacted. I've been reacted to a lot, and then that really just overall killed the video.
Right.
And people are like, "Oh, it gives you exposure." Kind
Hmm.
of. It
Yeah.
kind of. It's like, yes, and yeah, it's not a one-to-one value proposition for
Right.
me as a content creator. So I try to be very respectful of what that looks like, and how I manage that. So it's a weird balance, because the demand is there. It's like, I think the solution for that is YouTube just needs to let us, just like they do with the shorts, is to let us link our videos up together, so I could get some of that engagement or something like that in the video, because that
Yeah.
would then help promote it to other people. Like, oh, you have it, and then you'll watch the react. Like, if YouTube literally handled it that way, that would be the most interesting thing to kind of see how that would play out. And I think because like people want reaction content, so the demand is there. It's like, you're not going to get rid of it. People are going to keep making it. I think if they give us creators more tools, so that when it happens, you're not, going, oh,
Right.
well, yeah, thanks for the exposure. It took me a month to make that video, and then you just churn out endless amounts of content that nobody can keep that pace, because you're drawing from thousands of creators,
Right.
and you're using that leverage that you
I
have. So,
I
but
I try to do reaction videos of usually about a week old, if not a week and a half old, to react to someone's content, because at that point, sure, there's videos that just keep rising if it's a popular topic, but they usually kind of plateau,
mhm,
and it's because I'm such a small content creator. I always, doesn't matter if I use an article, doesn't matter if I take a video, I always put the link it to the person's
mhm,
channel, always say
yeah,
stuff like that, because again, I understand the business, and
important, yeah.
yeah, it's very important to do stuff like that.
The
So
and so then my approach with it is like, if there's news that I want to talk about, I don't chase the trends, but I
same.
do occasionally hit trends, because I'm excited about something, and then all of a sudden it pops off
You're
for a
pretty
little
good.
bit.
You're pretty
So,
good on Twitter. Like you're
oh yeah, but Twitter's just in a form of entertainment for me, and I'll
sure,
get
but
a lot of
you're
source
pretty quick at getting some
information
of the topics out there pretty fast.
for the news, like,
Yeah.
because like, a lot of it is just like, I have an interest in consoles in the
Hmm.
industry. But for example, like, oh, there was an update to Fortnite, or oh, the Minecraft, whatever. Like, I'm not making that kind of content. I'm not interested in it. So I'm not gonna try to trace every little thing. But it's like, oh, this is in my wheelhouse, I want to talk about it. Then I will. And then I just go and say, hey, here's the thing. And then, generally speaking, usually I can get it in one take. And so I just sit down and go, hey, here's this. I'm playing around with different styles right now, to see how it feels. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. It's been a lot of fun, but overall, like, I try not to push myself too hard. And I started breaking out channels to allow myself to do the nitty gritty stuff, because as the channel Ginger Prime, which has always been variety, grows, you find that some people like, I like this game and I only want to see this game. I'm only going to watch you for this game. I'm not going to watch this other game. Variety content ends up being a big challenge for content creators, because you
Been doing it
have
my whole
to
life.
like,
Yeah, been doing it my
yeah.
whole time.
Well, but it's the healthiest thing for
Yeah.
content creators, right? Like, a content creator who is hyper focused on one thing will grow, especially if it's niche, because they'll become the subject matter expert, and people will want to go to them for their opinion on that game. But eventually, as you see with time, yeah, game and game again,
Yep.
content creators are like, I don't like this game anymore, but I can't quit this game, because now my livelihood is tied up into it. And I
Right.
think that's just a deadly, dangerous combination. So my main channel is variety, and I'm really pushing, like, I want that essay-driven style. I like that style. Those are the videos I like to watch. Those are the videos I've been wanting to make, and I just never had the bandwidth. And then I just kind of do the, like, news and things that I'm interested in, and then with the breakout channels, I'm just kind of playing around. So I had a New World channel. I've just renamed that one Ginger Prime MMOs. And yes, it's still hyper focusing on New World, but they're also working on the Lord of the Rings
Right.
MMO.
Right. There's MMOs.
And
You're just going all over MMOs with that channel instead of just hyper focusing on New World.
Right, but it still will have that hyper focus
Sure.
to New World, but it's like, yeah, the Lord of the Rings one is in the same engine by the same team. Like there's a lot of cross functionality that I think a lot of people will like, and so it's like, yeah, that's what's going on with that one. There's a Blue Protocol channel right now, Blue Protocol, but I put out my review on Grand Blue Fantasy Relink over there as a test, and it's done really well because there's a cross functionality on anime, and so that might this year evolve into Ginger Prime Anime or something like
Mm,
that, where I play, like, because I love Tales of Arise. Saw that it was trending on Twitter. Great game. Like all these things that I'm like, yeah, I have these different things that I enjoy that don't necessarily cross over with everyday gamers, right?
right.
You might be really into anime, but you're not going to be into New World. Like the person who likes anime and who also likes New World, probably few and far between.
Right.
And I would
That niche
assume
market's probably tiny. Right.
Right. And I would assume then that the people who do probably are already subscribed to me in that regard. So
Right.
I've locked down that market. Like Brian likes these kind of games. I like these kind of games. All right. We are not the biggest monolith group out there in the world. Thank you, El Nini. And so that is essentially kind of the approach. And what I find is, because I am very tenacious, Chris, my friend who we run Work to Game with, he talks about how my like focus demotivates him and makes it harder for him to make content. And it's not my goal,
Right.
but it's that like I see, like, I get an idea and then I put it on paper and then I make it happen. Same thing with the comedy, same thing with the video game that
Yep.
I'm making. It's like I'm like, all right, I have this focus. It's a blessing and a curse. It's a double-edged sword, because when I get this kind of focus, like I just I'm just tenacious at
Right.
it.
You got to complete it. You got to get it done.
I got
Yeah.
to complete it. Otherwise, like my mood, like it's like I'm not happy about things. I'm just frustrated, and it's not fair. So I always try to end the day on some delivery. Meaning, at the end of the day, at work, I finished what's called a PR. And that's for a pull request. People can then they review the code, make sure that they don't have any problems with it, and then it gets accepted and get merged. So ending the day on a PR feels very good. Ending the day having put out a video on one channel at least feels really good. And then I love games, and so I always have. So I just have a lot of ingrained knowledge,
Yeah.
and the whole goal of it is like, this is what I see is happening. This is why it's happening. This is what it means to players. And I'm going to tell you what it means to players. And I'm going to get told I'm an idiot, which I was told that for 10 years with Final Fantasy on
Been there.
Xbox. I've been told that with like this console stuff. I'm like, guys, like Microsoft is making some big changes, and this is what this means. And no, Brian, you're wrong. And then it was great having, talking with Kirk about that. He's like, you were right. You called it. He was calling me Nostradamus. And I was like, oh man, that, I don't know how to feel about that, but
I literally have an emote
it's,
on this channel where I make predictions, and it's me, like the Swami with the third eye, because
oh
I,
yeah.
I, I make
Mhm.
so I make so many predictions. Obviously, we don't get them all right, but I put some whalers out there that people are like, never gonna happen, and then it does happen. And I always say, never say never, never say
Yep.
never.
So there's that driving factor. So I get a lot of joy out of it. There's a satisfaction, and this didn't exist and now it does, and I hope that somebody likes it and gets something good out of it. And occasionally YouTube takes a dump on my channel and nothing is getting viewed, which is what this year has already been, but that's okay. And then ultimately, I think like it all settles itself out, and that's why when it's all said and done, I'm thankful for the support that I've got. I'm thankful for the community that likes to hang out and play games. I'm thankful for the friendships and the relationships and the collabs that I've gotten to do because like of this. And then I also just try to pay it forward. So when anybody is like, "Hey, I'm trying to get into content creation, or I got questions," just being an open book and be like, here's my stats, here's my numbers, here's the money that I'm making, here's what you need to know and consider. Here's some thoughts that you want to consider, because I have the meetings. I've been in the meetings where they're like, Brian, you need to get your videos up to an average of 40,000 views a video. You should stop making this video because it hurts your overall channel average, and you should just focus in on these videos.
And you're like,
But
no, I like that
no,
video.
but I like that video.
Exactly.
Like I want that video to exist.
That's how
So
I
it
am.
does cost me sponsorships. It does like I know what I'm doing, and I'm doing it because I want to do it. and I
Right.
know that there's an adverse effect because I know how the game is played. And so that's where when I sit down with, aspiring creators, I go, this is how I do it, but here's how the game is played.
Exactly.
And even if you ever listen to some of the big guys like Josh Strife Hayes, like I like him, but he's talked about that. Like he's gotten to a point where he's big enough that if he doesn't deliver the thing that people want, YouTube is just going to take a dump on him,
Right.
and it's going to be much harder to kind of crawl out of that. For me, I kind of like that challenge. For me, I'm like, all right, here we go. It's like, oh, YouTube's not a fan of me right now. That's okay. We'll
Right.
see if we can get it back.
The way I do stuff is like I prune as I go, right? So if I have like for instance, my channel grew a lot this last month because of Suicide Squad. But I'm not a Suicide Squad channel, but because I
Right.
like the game, I play the game, I can talk about the game because I don't like talking about stuff I don't know. And I read a lot, I do a lot of news stories, and I read between the lines. So like you, I can make predictions and things because I can see the way the business goes, right? A lot of people
Yeah.
think I don't know what I'm talking about, but I've been a part of a lot of businesses. So I know the business aspect of it. And when I making YouTube videos, I know it's not going to be good. Like this one's not going to do well, but I do it anyway because I want people to come in and see. Like someone came in recently through a Suicide Squad video and said, "Wow, you make a lot of different content on this channel. It's not just this one game." And I want that person to stay. Like I don't want the person to come in just for this one topic. I want the person to come in for me, not the actual topic itself. So my channel's very slow at growing, but at the same time, the people that come and watch me are
Mhm.
here because of the full entire content that I have, not just that one hyper focused topic. So
Yeah.
when people look at me, I go, "Don't do what I'm doing. Like go make that one video, go work on one game, go play that thing, build your channel, and then once you're big, then you can do what you want because you already have that core base
That's
then."
generally the game. A lot of people are like, wait till you hit, 200,000 subs and then you can go variety. And I'm
Yeah.
like, all right. Ah, man. It's so corporate. And there's all these consultants that will call you that were like, hey, can I have a meeting? I can help you grow your channel.
I don't know any of
And then
that.
you're like, oh man, that's a whole other bag of
When do
chips,
you when
dude.
do you, when do you get that at? What subscribers do you need to
Whenever
get
you have,
that?
it's not a subscriber thing. It literally is whenever you have a video that like hits a certain
Oh,
number.
okay.
That's when it's like all of it, because they're looking for content creators that are maybe unaffiliated or they think that might not know better. It's like, hey, I can get you these deals and do this. And I'm always just like, whatever, dude. Like, all right, you're gonna be gone in a week anyway, because you're gonna tell me what I already know, that I should just make that video again and again. And I'm like, man, that just seems awesome. I mean, awful. I was like, ugh.
Well, I just did a video actually recently. I did a video because 11 months ago I made a video basically telling what was going to happen in another game, and I reposted it. And I said in the very beginning, I said this video was made 11 months ago, but I'm re-uploading it because I want to show like this is exactly still relevant today. And when I first posted it 11 months ago, it only got 250 views, right? When I posted
Mhm.
it this time around and putting it that it was 11 months ago, I got 2,000 views in the first like 18 hours. And I was just like, it's the exact same content. There's nothing changed. It was literally just 11 months ago, reposting it with me talking, explaining what it was in the beginning. And it shot through the roof for my channel. It's a good video for the amount of subs I have. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm still learning the ropes of what YouTube, how it puts you on the board, right? If you're playing the game correctly, it'll put you on the board for other people to find you. And if you're not playing the game correctly, it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't punish you. It just doesn't put you in the front of the room.
Right. And then that's always something very interesting. So yeah, I like the community that I have. I like that, like, and while yes, I've amassed a good number. Like, I mean, this isn't. I'm not trying to be like
Oh no,
false,
yeah.
fake, humble, but it's like the number is it's mind-boggling. And yes, I would love to get to 100,000. Like,
What are
I
you at?
don't.
What are you at now?
I'm dancing around 77. So the
Nice.
last couple of weeks, like it was. So I'm at 76 and 981, and it got up to 77.17, and then it dropped down to 900 and like
Yeah,
70.
people do that as soon as they see you hit a milestone. They're like, I'm gonna unfollow him just to.
Like, all right, yeah. Well, it's like I'm like, all right, like that's the thing. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna make the stuff that I want to make, because if I'm not having fun, like that's where it's like I find a lot of fun in making videos and breaking down, and doing guides, and it's just like I love that the time that I can invest in the game in a game and learn it and understand its systems both as a gamer, but also like I see kind of behind the scenes like, oh, this is what they're doing. This is how that they've written this, algorithm to do these things. Like, oh, this is really neat. But there's a lot of passion and joy, and it's like, yeah, and if that goes away, then I stop uploading. Like if I'm not having fun, or if my kids ever come to me and say, hey dad, we want you to stop uploading, I don't think you'll see another video from me.
Right.
You maybe will see a goodbye video or something like that, goodbye for now, and then be like, yeah, hey guys, kids they're in elementary now, but if they hit middle school or high school and they're like embarrassed by what I do,
Right.
I'm done. I'm just gonna stop. This isn't about
You
me,
could
right?
write that into your next comedy bit. You'd be like, your kids got older, and now all of a sudden they think you're like a porn star, and they don't want you to do stuff on the internet anymore.
They think I'm a porn star.
No, I'm saying when they get older, they'll be embarrassed.
No,
Like,
I'm
like,
saying
oh,
they would be correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
This isn't a porno.
Yeah. So what's your oldest kid? What's the oldest child that you
9.
have? 9. Okay, that's what I
9.
have. I have a
Yeah.
9-year-old. Yeah. So does he understand like what you do, and like does he watch like YouTube Kids and the other content creators that he watches?
We limit the exposure. So my kids like making videos with me. So what we do is we make the videos and we upload them on a special kids channel
Oh,
that's
cool.
set to private, that we send the videos out to family. And my philosophy about that is because yeah, they like kids know who YouTubers
Yeah.
are, right? Um, but my philosophy is that those aren't going to ever be public until my kids are adults and can
Right.
think like adults, and then they can decide for themselves if they want those videos to be public or not. And so it is like, and whether they end up becoming that or not, it's just a fun time that I get to do with the kids. The kids like making the videos and they like watching them. I will lay down on the couch that's behind me, and because I'll set it up. They'll have the green screens. They're playing the game and commenting
That's awesome.
on it, etc. And then I'm back there just kind of like trying not to laugh too hard because it's just so funny. Because
Yeah.
like one day, my oldest is a girl, and so I've got girl, boy, girl, girl.
Hold on. That's like a contra code. Say that again.
Yeah, I know. Girl, boy, girl, girl.
Okay.
I also say like time to up, down, left, right, select start. It's like the contra code and for Catholics. Yeah, so I was just laying on the couch with my youngest son. He's playing and whatever, and then he goes, Dad, what am I supposed to say? I go, whatever you want, man. Like it's your video. Like there's no script. Like just go nuts, man. Like talk about whatever. And so then just listening to what their minds kind of create,
Yeah.
and it's precious and it's special, and that's where it's like they want to do that. We get to do that. That's some good time together. And then that's also just for us, because
Right.
I've stated multiple times, like my kids aren't my content, and they're not going to be my content.
Same with me.
Because as a parent, I'm not, I'm everybody, you do whatever the hell you want in this life, but I tell you hands down, like I see it and I go, no, oh, it's great that Ryan's toy review has been so successful. Good for him. No, I'm not doing that.
No,
with
I
my
agree with
kids,
you. Yeah.
And if my kids ever want to get into content creation, okay, when they're adults, and they can start to understand that what you put out online is great, because like you see how the internet can just be merciless.
Oh yeah.
And I don't want, like they want to meme me on the Phil Spencer stuff. Awesome, tweet that out, retweet it. Like I love it. You could I like getting tagged in it. Follow me over on that platform. It is the most, like Twitter is like it. You need to take breaks for your mental health, but it is an entertainment platform.
Absolutely.
For me. I get a lot of value and entertainment, and also good to make some connections and be able to communicate. But outside of that, like, yeah, go for it. This is great. But I'm an adult who doesn't care what people think about them.
It takes a long time to get to that space though, because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I don't care what people
don't care.
Yeah, don't care. I liked how you just said that, because as a father as well with a son that's 9 years old, he always says, "I want to do what you do. I want to do what you do," and I'm like, I was like, try to do something else. I was like, but
you should do the thing that we're doing, because
I
even
am.
if they decide not to,
yeah,
you're going.
Yeah, I
awesome.
am. Yeah, so he'll sit down, and he loves Minecraft. So he'll play Minecraft, and as he's playing Minecraft, he'll record it, because he plays on the iPad. So he'll record his gameplay on the iPad. So it goes into like iPhoto or whatever, And then
Yeah.
he goes back and does the voiceover. He's like, oh, and he pretends he's talking to people,
Yeah.
like,
Well,
and
and the kids all do it. Like, so they've seen the YouTube videos.
yes,
Hey, my oldest daughter, she's got her like gamer tag that she introduces herself as, and over the course of a couple of videos, she's changed it. So
yep,
she was like, "I was this," and then it did it in her video, like, "Hey, it's me. You might know me as this, but I'm gonna be known as this going forward."
that's funny. That's funny.
I was like, she's only literally
It's
making this
almost it's
video
almost
for
like
the
having an
family,
imaginary friend, you know what I mean? Like you're talking to
Yeah.
yeah, and you know what? I think it's healthy for them to have outlets like that.
Well, and Magic in chat says with a 6-year-old, I'm stealing the idea. Do it. Like,
Yeah.
because then you have a time capsule of something that you can enjoy with your kid. And again, like but setting to private, letting family be the
Yep.
only people who watch it, like honestly is a lot of fun. The family gets a huge kick out of it, and then you don't have to worry about the
Yeah.
downsides of
Anything
internet.
else. Yeah.
Yeah, and then my thing is like once they're an adult, they get to choose because it
And
is
they understand
them
it.
on
Right.
camera.
And then they
Yeah,
understand it. My
yeah.
son also he you know, kids nowadays don't go out and like mow the lawn, right? And so I was like telling my son, I was like,
Make
well,
my kids eat the lawn
yeah.
like goats.
So
It's like I got 6 of them. We
right.
got to figure out some way to save $1.
So I told my son, I go,
I'm
look,
joking.
if you
People think I'm
want,
like I joke a lot about child abuse, and it really does piss people off.
that's fine. I mean, it's only child abuse if they report it. So if they
Gotta prove
that's right, you have to
it.
prove it. If my son, he's interested in like editing. He's like I was like, if you want to edit, I was like, I have videos all day long. I was like, you can play with those. I'll give them to you. You can edit. And he's interested in like starting to edit stuff. He's doing like stop motion stuff with
Mhm.
his Legos and all this stuff. So I think it's a cool way. I limit my son to iPad time and video time because it's awesome for the kids to have an imagination, go do things, and then also to you know, we limit him to about an hour a day to surf YouTube Kids, and we see what he's watching. One of his favorite guys to watch is Mark Rober, which is the engineer. I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah, I know who Mark
Yeah,
Rober is.
yeah.
Intimately.
Do you? Oh, that's nice.
No. We cuddle.
So yeah, I think it's a cool little outlet for, and it's nice that you incorporate that with your kids, especially you know that you have so many of them to give that time.
Yeah. And then like the ultimate like thing that I always want to let people know, and one of the reasons why I enjoy doing a live stream, a couple hours, maybe once a week.
Hmm.
It's fun. I enjoy it. We have a lot of fun. I believe gaming is community driven. But on the weekends when I'm off, when I'm off work, it's all about pouring myself
Same.
into my kids. It's all and so that's where my biggest concern for content creators, especially those of them people who are trying to be full-time, they want this like nothing else. My biggest concern is that none of them are having a family. None of them are getting married. None of
And
them
they
are
get
having
burnt out.
children.
Right, and they get burnt out.
And they get burnt out. And then essentially at some point you're gonna wake up and be like, oh, what was I doing?
Mhm.
Because, and so for me, like it's about them. We weren't able to have children, and then we had a miracle and we were able to have children. And then my wife had surgery, and she had brain surgery, and then we were able to have kids. So crazy, crazy life. So I have a massive appreciation. I feel very blessed by the children. And I just want to make sure that that's my priority. It sucks that I have to work so hard because it's like, we do a Dave Ramsey thing. We don't believe in having debt. And so we don't, and we paid off, we got out $100,000 of debt, and that was painful. And it was thankfully painful enough that I'm like, no, I'm just not going to borrow money.
Yeah,
My truck's 20 years old. It's paid for.
but
It
you
runs.
feel better now about it, don't you?
Oh, well, now it's absolutely worth the pain, but it's that in and of itself, that means we say a no to a lot of things. We say no to a lot of things. We don't go on vacations. We are saving up, but it's going to take us, a couple of years still to save up the money to go take the kids to Disney. That's
Right.
the goal. We want to do the Disney trip, right? And there's a bummer part of it because it's like, well, Maddie's 9. I want her to get out there. What can I do extra? How can I bring in more money and at the same time not be away from the kids, as much? Because it's easy. I could easily be a workaholic. And workaholics is the only addiction that you are rewarded for. Like people like if you think about it as alcoholics, it's like the more you drink, we're going to give you more to drink. That's what workaholic is
Right.
like, oh,
Right.
you got
Or
you
work.
worked more,
Yeah. Or
you got
work.
more money.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then it feels good, and I'm gonna go work more, and then more money, and then it's like, okay, yeah, you have all this money, but nobody gives a shit about you
Yep.
because they don't know who you are, So it's like, all right,
Yeah, I stream Monday through Thursday, and I'll give all day, 8 hours. I do 2 hours, 3 hours in the morning. I'll do 3 hours, 4 hours in the evening. Do podcasts, live streams, uploads. But come Friday, Thursday night after my podcast, Friday, Saturday,
mhm,
Sunday, that's for my family. That's to hang out with the kid. That's to hang out with my wife because you need to have that balance. As at least I believe you have to have that balance as a content creator. Otherwise,
yeah,
you see all these other guys. I mean, yeah, sure. To me, at 45, money's not everything, right? And I used to travel a lot. I used to be on the road 200 days a year, traveling all over the country, the world, and stuff like
mhm,
that. And then when I had a kid, I was like, put that brakes on. I was like, I want to be a dad. I want to be here for my son. So,
mhm,
it hurt me as a because I used to be the breadwinner, and then I wasn't the breadwinner. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
a
There's
that,
definitely that's definitely a challenge for men for sure. And there's some men that like I guess they're perfectly fine with it, or they say they're fine with it. But yeah, like
oh, it took me a long time to get
I feel very good being a provider. Like it just feels very natural, and it does feel very satisfying to be that. And my wife's a stay-at-home wife, and she works her ass off.
right.
It's like, and the thing that frustrates me, and the thing I would like to see, not to get overly political, but I would love to see policies that are family focused, because my wife doesn't count towards the GDP of
Right.
this country. But if I hired somebody to do the thing she did and then she went to work, then that would count. And I just think that's ridiculous,
Right.
because, and it's not that, she might not go back to work at some point when the kids are older, but this is what we both wanted. And it's
Yeah,
a
but
sacrifice that we
at
are
that
making.
time, she's much older, and then it'll be harder to get back into the workforce if she tries to go back in the workforce. I mean, I don't know what she
Yeah,
does
but
for a
she's
living, yeah, but
well, she went and studied uh what is that? Basically she studied something that doesn't ever pay money. So it's like she'll
right.
probably be a secretary, or she can do whatever she wants. She's a smart woman. But yeah, like it might hurt her career, but she's not career minded in that regard, so it helps.
Right.
She wants to be a stay-at-home mom.
My career was I was a first AC. I was a camera operator, first AC, and out of sight, out of mind. So once I left the industry, someone else took my spot. So now if I went back, I could make a call and be like, "Hey, I get on this job or whatever." But I wouldn't go back to that same position anymore because someone's already filled in that position. So in my line of work, you only got promoted if someone retired or died. That was it. Or
Oh wow.
or if production became so much like in back in 2008 to 2011, we had like 15 feature films come to Florida and film in
Hmm.
this area. And because there's so many films that came in, obviously you got your spot to get because there wasn't enough people to go around, so you were double booked or whatnot. But once it goes back down to normal, right, that director of photography that gets hired brings his camera operator in, and his camera operator brings his second, and his second brings his, so it's like this hierarchy of stuff. And so if you're not in, then you're out, right? So it's a very
Yeah.
tight knit community of this. So as 45 now, if I decided I want to go back to work, it's like almost being like 20 years old again, and I have to work my way back up into that circle again.
Hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, switching gears a little bit. Game design, right? You are a game designer, right? You
Yeah.
come and from that perspective, a lot of people,
Actually what I studied in college.
and you're actually doing it. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations.
It took a long time. I got chased out by the Halo 2 documentary. I was like, no way will anybody want me to be like, hey guys, I'm going to be locked in this building for 10 months so I can finish this game that we've been working on for years. It's like, oh man, I was like, no. So I went app dev, but yeah, I've always dabbled. I've made a couple of games, never published them. Just little small things. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I love how it all works and works together. But this year, talking with my wife, partnered up with a development studio who you might maybe people have heard of. But we've been asked not to share it outside of members right now, so just kind of keeping it locked down because we're in pre-production.
Cool.
Ultimately, they might also be the developer, but the goal is we're trying to get that plan, the design document fully written, So that way, like if I want to find another developer, from a cost perspective, I can. But in my mind, I want people who've put out games on systems to help make this happen. So we're all working on this design document. I'm the lead designer of it. This is a game that I've been wanting to make for a very, very long time. To give everybody kind of a heads up of what kind of game it is a 4-player beat 'em up roguelike, because I think that would be
Hmm.
something very unique. And there's a system involved with like how you progress, but also your character that plays into the roguelike elements of the game that is very fun. And there's this overall thing and kind of a little story that's going on with it. And if people end up, if it's fun, the goal is to release it as a part of an early access game. So that way we can hopefully then help offset some of the cost of development. And then ultimately, if people are really interested in it and it goes well, then to bring it to consoles. And I would be honored and flattered if I was able to get it into Game Pass or into PlayStation Plus or both. Because I really just want people to play it and then let me know what they think about it. Because I think, and we'll have to see once we're not in production yet, we're in pre-production. The goal is for this year to be focusing on pre-production, having all the bells and whistles, having all the resources lined up to make sure that we've got the money and it's funded and it's ready to go. And I'm funding it because I was like, all right, I'm gonna work, and I'm gonna try to bring in some extra money, the YouTube stuff, and see if I can help offset the cost of this. And it's not an MMO, or it's not like I wouldn't call
Right.
this a triple A massive game. I would still classify this as like I'm an indie dev. I'm working with an indie dev team, and we're gonna get something. We want to get something out there in the universe, and see how people respond to it. And if it's fun, just like getting off on stage and doing comedy, and it's successful, meaning I don't go, hey, you just spent all that money. You could have bought a new truck, Brian. It's
Right.
like, no,
Right.
I don't. I have an old truck. Then let's do it again. So if it can be a cash positive experience, and then I've got so many game ideas and things that I've done and drawn up that I'm like, I'd love to make that. I'd love to make that too. Some of them are obviously bigger and more grandiose. So this is like, what would be something really fun? What would something people will vibe with? And I love the beat 'em up genre. I love Castle Crashers. I love the Ninja
Hmm.
Turtles. And then I go, what would make it really special? Like, what would make it really unique? That could be a lot of fun for people to play through and have multiple playthroughs. And I was like, oh, and then whether you want to play solo or you want to play up to with 4 friends, I don't care. But the systems do change if you're doing a multiplayer game, because if you die, you're dead in a roguelike, right?
Right.
But in a multiplayer, it's like, yeah, well, we'll let your friends bring you back, because it's not gonna be fun sitting around watching them
Right. You're watching
get
like,
beat up. But
yeah, watching the
so it's
camera
like,
while
yeah,
they play
we're
the game.
we're 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 working through that. It's an RPG, so we got classes, and then there's going to be all kinds of different ways that you can do things and set up your character and your build. So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
So I'm going to ask a question for game development. I don't know how it works in film. I know pre-production. Principal photography could take anywhere from a couple days, couple weeks, to a couple of months, all depending on what you're doing. If it's a commercial, if it's a music video, if it's a TV show or movie. When you're doing a game that you're doing, and the process of like pre-production, is that
Mhm.
is that a couple of weeks? Is that a couple of months? Is it just jotting a couple
Most
notes on a piece of a napkin and stuff, or is it like
There's not napping. We have an actual document and resource that they have a nice little software that we've found that we're using to kind of put all the plans in place. But you have to think about it just like I would say that there's probably a lot of parallels
yeah, there
to
is. Yeah.
movie making, but it's also like, okay, what kind of art style? Great. Now, what artist? Like, who's gonna
Right.
put in the work to make these assets? And so it's a lot of that, and most likely this year it's going to be pre-production for a year, namely because like I have a job, I've got
Right.
busy
You're not
schedules,
full
and
time at it. You're
right,
you're
this isn't, and so, but this is like still, like I told Jules, this is one of my biggest bucket list items that I've ever had, and I'm going to like will this into existence, and I hope beyond hope that it's fun and it's good. And if it's not fun, if it's good, I'm going to come out and say, and if we ever have like it and say, hey guys, yeah, we just couldn't get it to work and it's not fun, well, you guys can play with the code if you
right.
want. It's
Right.
like,
Right.
because it's like I want to make sure that at the end of the day, because like people who watch my videos, people who go with a membership on the channel, they get extra insight, and we got writers rooms and stuff like that, like what I've seen Lono do. I think he
Yeah.
has such a smart plan for his content. But beyond like that, it's like, yeah, even just lurkers and watchers, like y'all's support is still supporting this vision that I have. And I hope that that essentially is something that we can pull the trigger on and enter into full production in 2025, and then hopefully have something out in early access. Well, still, we're running the numbers. We're also looking at, because, like, is it something where we have the devs work on this part time, where they work on another project, to help spread out the cost, as opposed to like, oh crap, that month was really expensive. Did I have the, 20 grand
Right, the
to
funds
pay,
to pay for that. Yeah.
the funds to pay for that? Yeah. So right now I don't have the 20 grand, but we're good.
Well,
I hope to get there. We're saving it up a little bit at a time.
Well, I come I made a board game. I've actually made a couple of board games, and the one of the things is my board game is complete and done, but I didn't have the funding to get it made. And this is actually one of the reasons I started a podcast. Right, 10 years ago, I started a podcast. I was like, oh, I'll do a podcast, and then people will start watching the podcast. We'll talk about stuff, and then I'll make some money from that, and I could take that money and throw it into the board game to get the production costs. And then it just turned into I didn't continue working out. Like the game is done. Done. And the amount of time I put into a board game, it was just me and my brother that worked on it, and we had an artist, a third guy that we paid outside, and we paid a lot of money to get all the artwork and stuff done. And I 100% the artwork and stuff and the design that you go into the process of anything is super expensive for especially for people that are doing it just part time, trying to get the funds together to put something. So once your game is out and about, so can you give us a little insight on how, for instance, Suicide Squad took 9 years, or Helldivers 2 took 9 years to make because they started back in like 2016 for pre-production or whatnot.
Great game, by the way.
Oh,
Great game.
Oh, have you played it?
Yes, Helldivers 2
Yeah,
is my, like, I'm addicted.
It's awesome.
Like, there's so many good games. I want to play Enshrouded. I want to play but like Helldivers 2, like I just keep, it's got that just one more match.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just, let's just go back down.
I got done streaming last night and still continued playing it afterwards because I was like, I just want more.
I remember playing Final Fantasy 11 back when I was younger, and we were staying up, and it was like 2 a.m, and I was the healer, and I was so tired. I was dozing off, and I remember falling asleep and then waking up and be like, "Oh, I gotta heal." I was like, and just I remember that moment.
Brian, why aren't you healing?
I had that same moment in Helldivers 2 where I was playing. I wanted to keep playing, but they were running around the planet, and then I dozed off, and I woke up, and I was all by myself, and I was like, "Oh no!" But nothing could kill me.
Everybody left you.
Well, yeah, because it's like he just stopped moving. Like, hey, what are we doing here? And so I wasn't in voice chat. I was just playing on my handheld, and I was like, "Yeah, this is great. Let's go." And so I was. I'm a big fan of that game. I might play some tonight. I don't know.
Actually, I am playing tonight after we're done here. When you see people on the internet talk about like, oh, 9 years, what did they do to this game? It's like, bro, like, it's hard to make a video game. It's really easy to criticize a video game.
It's not just hard. Yeah, it's very easy to criticize.
Really easy to criticize.
It's also getting harder, and that's where like people were like, it's getting cheaper because there's more gamers and they're buying more games. It's like, are they? Like, no. And then it's like, you don't understand the overall like risk, because I'm not putting millions of dollars. I'm not a millionaire. It's like I'm not putting my life savings into this. I'm like, how can I make I think what would be a well-contained, well-defined game, and maybe I'm going to charge $30 for it. I think that like, yeah, can I make and then what does that then need to entail? Because I think that if I was asking you to buy my game for $30, I want you to have a like at least like a really good experience, that the combat's going to be really fun and fluid, and you want to come back for that. And then all of a sudden you get into the systems, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I have all these little things. So like all of that is important. Price is important, but we see these big games that aren't the biggest games. They're not the like we have seen like live service game fatigue really set in last year, because I argue that the service was that they released a banger every month, it felt like, and it was just a ton of fun to play. Last year was a great year. I think one of the best years we've had in a long time for gaming.
Yeah, I agree.
In terms of the games. But in terms of then you look at everything else, the cost to all these things, like it, people, I get frustrated when I hear people say, just make it good. Or, like we were on the podcast, and my co-host was like, we were talking about crunch, and he's like, just don't do it. I was like, That's the easiest thing to say,
Right.
and that gets you the most online points. But the reality, once you step into how the world is, it doesn't work like that. And it sucks that utopias are out of reach, but it's like it's so easy to say just do it versus like, okay, how do we actually make that work? And I think that's where there's so much nuance. It's so hard to have that conversation online because it's complex.
Right.
We want, as humans, easy solutions. Well, just don't do it, or just do it.
I
Like, you know,
I have a saying on my show. I say all the time. I say, make a game, sell a game, and
yeah,
it sounds simplistic, and but the make a part, right? When you make a game, is the love, tender care that you put into the thing, the time that you're spent. So, like, a lot of people have ideas, and as you're making a game, I'm sure you want to like do certain things, right? Like, for
yes,
instance,
that's the challenge.
right, like look at Star
It,
Citizen. Star Citizen. I know you
right.
started
Oh,
playing
I
Star
love it.
Citizen, right?
Oh, dude, I love
But
it.
every time something comes out, the guy who makes something Roberts, I forget his first name, but he talks Chris Roberts, right? He
Yeah.
every time he sees something, he's like, "Oh, I want that in my game," right? He starts to add things to the pile of things that they're already working on, and
Yeah.
that the thing is the problem. Now, obviously, that's why the game's in alpha for 10 years. Now, I've played it; it's an amazing game, but at the same time, just just finish that game, make that game, and then sell that game. And you look at certain games like Helldivers, or you look at games like Pal World, or you look at games like No Man's Sky. Sometimes the business gets a hold of them and pushes it out the door before it's ready. And
Yep.
if it's a 3 to 5 year game or a 5 to 7 year game, they release it at 5, but it needed 7. But then they work on it for 2 years. Cyberpunk, right, was worked
Yep.
on for 7 years, but it released too early. And they even said out of their own mouth, "We're not releasing like those other guys did," and then they did. So when I say make a game, sell a game, it's like take your time, do what you want, just make the game that you want, and then sell that game. Because if you make a game and then you sell that game, it's going to be successful because as much passion as you put into it, people can tell. Because you could tell when a game's shitty or when the game's really good or really bad by just give it the smell test. Basically, you look at it and you're like, something's off about that. The day before, right? You look at it and go, something off about that, right?
Ooh, yeah.
So even what's that other MMO that's coming out? Quinfall, I think that's what it's called. You heard about this?
Yeah, I've heard about it. I've heard about the issues with the assets and
Yeah.
basically how that's being developed, and it just kind of also was very like sus, to use a term that my daughter uses. Like, all right, no, so it's like, there's what I call red flags, and it's like, don't. It's great. Hype is important, in terms of it helps drive sales and
Yeah, but don't put
marketing,
the
and
cart
it's
before the
fun.
horse.
But also at the same time, no video game is going to come out and fix your problems, and so it feels like a lot of people put a lot of their self-worth in whether a game does well or does not, and they'll attach themselves to a game
The
that sounds
brand, the
like everything that
game.
they want.
Yeah.
And the thing I've seen, especially because like as someone who likes MMOs, like I'm enjoying the heck out of Star Citizen. Their next update looks to just dramatically bring in a lot of things from the Squadron 42. Squadron 42, I think, is going to be out sometime either in late 2025 or maybe
Like the full thing finally?
yeah. Meaning it's it's a single player game.
Yeah, the 40. Yeah, I know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, 42. Cool. And then they have the persistent universe. And I was like, it's such an interesting package because you can deliver this really cool narrative story in this universe. And then if you want to keep playing in that universe once you've done that, then you can just hop over into the MMO version of this. So it's honestly, it's going to be interesting to see. They've obviously got the funding and the support behind them as a company. So I'm like, all right, let's see what happens. I hope the game's a success. I already feel like I've gotten my value out of it, and I decided I was going to start, backing it with, buying like a ship or two here or there. And so, that's been
You got $48,000. You can get that bundle.
No, you got to hit a certain tier, so I think it's beyond that. So it's just like, but no, if somebody wants to drop 48K on the game,
you do you, yeah,
great, do you, man. Like, I don't get when I see a lot of gamers like get mad about that. I'm like, who am I to tell you how to spend your money?
Right.
If someone wants to price something, we all live in this concept of a market, and both the marketplace of ideas, but also you can price something at a price and nobody will buy it, but you could then lower the price and all of a sudden you get so much more interest.
Yep.
Same thing with the price of video games, same thing more especially with the price of consoles. Everybody keeps praising the PS5 sales coming up on 55 million. Awesome. That's great, but how do you get the next 55 million? And
Right.
if the price is not, if the price is where it's at, like if you lowered the PlayStation 5's price to $50, I think you'd get 200 million units out there, right? Easily, because price is a barrier for entry. But that's just, they don't want to do that. They like making money on their console.
Right.
I don't fault them for it. So when you start looking at all these things, is like people complain about the price of a cosmetic in the video game, and honestly, like they're either ignorant or they're doing it for clout, because the reality is things get priced and they're priced probably too expensive, but that gives them the ability to lower the price and make, have sales. And immediately once they say, hey, this $20 item is now 10 for a limited time, it kicks up that FOMO in you, and it's just marketing BS that's just
Right.
working on your brain. So just like, I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money. Don't tell me how to spend my money, and I think we're going to be good. I think like that's perfectly fine. But there is a problem with monetization in video
Well,
games.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
as a developer, right? As a person that's making a game, are you okay charging $30 for your game and then a cosmetic is 1/3 that? You know what I mean? Like,
No, no,
yeah,
I'm not. Not in one bit. I think that completely devalues the
I think so.
proposition. I think, and that's where it's like, if they want to make their game free, again, opening it up to anybody to
Sure.
come play, and then they want to do that, like that's a business model, and there's a market for that, right? It's not the market that I'm looking for,
Right.
and that's
Someone's there.
that's all this boils it down. It's like not every game is for every, it needs to be for everybody,
Correct.
and it's like, okay, just understand what the relationship is and what the ask is. My biggest frustration when it comes to monetization in video games isn't that somebody might do that very thing. It's that they don't do it right away and then they do it later. So if I launched my
Little
game
scummy.
and
Yeah.
then I sold it for $30, and then 2 years later I was like, and now I've got all these microtransactions. Like that feels bad.
Yeah.
I won't do that, and no game I ever am attached to will do that. That's my commitment. But people are going to do it, and the thing is that boggles my mind. People buy it, and that's that. Back to the comedy thing. The only review that matters of my
Yours.
comedy is the room.
Oh, right. We're in
Did
the
I
room.
get laughs? Right.
Yeah.
Like the only thing that actually matters is the laughs in the room, or like when I do kind of test out comedy like this, or on a like on a live stream. But yeah, I bring people into the voice chat because it makes it more natural. So I'm not waiting for, oh, did they write LOL or did they write
Right.
you bigot, or something like that. I don't know. So it's like you get that more real time feedback, and that's the comedy club gives you. Same kind of concept with games. Like, yeah, I can say I don't like a certain way that things are monetized, but clearly somebody's buying this stuff.
Yeah.
There is a market for that, and that, like, every time Nintendo does something that it really frustrates me, I give them money, and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me?
Yeah.
You
Right.
know,
Like, I
right?
hate this.
Oh,
Here's take my credit
oh,
card.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, an
Yeah.
OLED model. That's not everything I wanted it to be, but all right, I got two now. So, like that, and that's also a thing. Kind of when we talk about console sales numbers, the Switch numbers are completely deceptive. People think of the Switch as a console, and they think of that incorrectly. It's a handheld with the TV output, which is great.
That's correct. Right.
The DS and the Switch, I think the Switch will overtake the DS. But will it overtake the PlayStation? Here's the most interesting thing. You, as a gamer, might own more handhelds than actual physical consoles. If the Switch was a console that was just a part of the TV, I might have just one. I only had one SNES. I only
Right.
had one NEN64. But I had multiple Game Boys. I had multiple DSs, and I have multiple Switches. And that is where I think when people
And you
praise
have multiple
Nintendo Switch sales,
mobile phones now.
well, I don't play games on my mobile phone.
I,
Like that's, but yeah, but I do actually. I do have multiple mobile phones because I'm
yeah.
a developer. Yeah, so it's like, okay. Um, so all that being said is like, yeah, I'm not dogging on the Switch sales numbers, but they're not telling you the story. The story that the Switch sales numbers are telling you is that there's a real problem in the console space, because no console's been able to
They've
to
sold
top the
less
other
every they've sold less every
every year.
year.
And
Yeah.
so they like
Or
there has
every
been
generation, I
growth.
should say. Yeah.
Well, there has been growth, but that growth we've seen, especially this generation, dive down to, I think I was talking with my friend Mark about this, to 1%. Like it's at a 1% growth. I think you're going to start to see it actually really shrinking. And ultimately, that is just because people kind of have moved on from what is a console in the first place.
Right.
And that's where you see a lot of frustration and a lot of confusion from the diehard console fans. And so, like I submit, like what is even a console in the era of the Steam Deck and the Acer Rogue Ally and even the Logitech G Cloud? These are three handhelds that I can play Spider-Man on. I can play, I can play PlayStation games that have pushed to PC, and PlayStation keeps signaling that they're going to be pushing even more aggressively into PC. And Helldivers is a good example. The defenders will come out and be like, "Oh, it's just their games as a service and their multiplayer games. They're doing that."
Sure.
Today,
Yeah.
that's the first logical step. The next one is, we spent $400 million, and there's 200 million gamers out there that are just wanting to play this game, and only 50 of them, 50 million are here. It's like the market numbers like are going to drive this, and gaming is so more mainstream and it's so much more mass market that there's so many moving factors that a lot of people think the moves that Microsoft's making, and what I don't know what we're going to get announced tomorrow. I think Microsoft is going to say, you know what, the Xbox, it's just an effing PC, guys. Like it's a mid-grade PC. We have it at a great price. Put Steam on it. Put the Epic Game Store on it.
You think they're going to put? You think they're going to put Steam and other things on their console?
I don't know if it's like tomorrow, but it's like I think that's the model, because why would I buy another Xbox when I can buy the Steam Deck and just dock it to my TV? Now, it doesn't play all the games yet, but that's a problem and a function of time. And same thing with all these different options that are coming down the pipe. And so I think just like we saw where like back in the 80s, like you ever see the thing of like all these devices that people had, here's your camera, here's your calendar, here's your beeper, here's this and that and the other thing. And they go now, and it's just a phone, and here's your clock, here's your calculator. And then your phone is like, it's just this one device. And in a way, I think that's the way that technology is heading.
Absolutely.
To where, you have a console, but it's like, it's like, why do I have a single use device when every other device that's on the market does it all? And so then all of a sudden it's like, why chase the future? Why not lead the future and define it?
That's exactly how I see it. And it's funny to me that when Microsoft came out years ago with the Xbox One, right? And they came out and they said, "Oh, it's going to be your set-top box, and it's going to have all these things on there." Everyone pushed back because it was too early for that, right? It was too early for now. Look at what cable is. What are we watching, right? No one's got cable, and we all have subscription services of apps that are on our Xbox and PlayStation, and like you could watch any television thing that you want on all your
smart TV.
Yeah, your smart TV is the same thing.
The instant that my smart TV lets me install GeForce Now, and then I just have a controller that hooks up to it.
Yeah.
What else do I need? And people are like, cloud streaming is in the future. It's like I play at 120 frames a second in an ultra wide setting in the highest PC settings that you can imagine on the cloud. I stream all of this so you can go look at my gameplay. All of this is streamed. All of this is public, and it's an incredible experience. And then people go, but the internet isn't that great across the world.
I love when people tell me that. Right. I love when people say that.
You don't think that these companies that are all banking on this,
Sony
you don't
included, think they're putting the infrastructure in?
They're not going to like, hey, why don't y'all like actually solve this infrastructure problem? And it is a problem,
Sure.
But it's not a problem that's going to be around for a long time.
Well,
it's going to be a problem that is going to have more incentive to get fixed. And for me, I finally just got fiber in my neighborhood. So it's and still, even before having fiber, like the cloud internet, the gaming experience, you don't need, like more like an insane amount. It's like 30 down, which is pretty standard outside of, some very rural areas.
I have this MetaQuest 2 back here, right? When I travel, I just bring that with me, and I play on my Xbox Game Pass through the cloud, through the app that they just put on in December. I was like, this is amazing. I get to play a game. I sit in the room. I have the speaker on my head, and I'm immersed. I'm immersed into this world, and I'm like, people don't understand. Like, you were just talking about the console sales are getting less and less, right? Even if PlayStation comes out and they sell I'll give them 200 million units. That's it.
That'd be great. That'd be amazing.
That's all you're getting, and that'll be the best ever.
3 billion gamers. Right,
3 billion gamers. You're getting 200 million. Okay. Now let's talk about the infrastructure of like the internet. Okay. There's 3 billion people out there. Do you think there's less or more people that have better internet than 200 million people in the world? I think there's
Better.
more
There's more.
better
There's
right.
more.
There's
Yeah.
more people that have
Yeah.
better internet than what people own for console sales, right? So that's what Xbox is going for, right? Xbox is going for that market. They don't need to go to all markets yet. They just need to find the markets that have it and then push
Mhm.
and promote inside those markets.
Yeah.
And once they
Well,
do,
especially you look at kids today, they're not connected to the PlayStation or the Xbox as these brands. They're connected and rallying around these IPs, which happen to be very play anywhere or
right,
crossplay specific. So it's like, well, wait, like it doesn't make sense. My kids don't understand it. And yeah, they're on the younger end, but then I even talk to my nephews who are in their, teens and starting to go into their 20s, and they're just like, yeah, I just want a PC. Like it's like I don't want a console. That seems very restrictive. And then for the price, like why don't I just spend a couple $100 more and then all of a sudden I get everything. And
right,
then your library sticks with you and then you don't have to do all these, and there's downsides to PC gaming because PC gaming also isn't a mass market solution. It's great and it's great that it exists. But there are people who want the convenience of a console and the power of a PC, and that I think is where essentially mass market is going to be driven off the cloud. Yeah, you can have that PC level experience. Devs get to develop for like one environment, and then it just gets streamed out to you. So whether you're playing on your TV, on your computer, on your smartphone, you have the experience that you have. And
right.
I think essentially it's going to be a really kind of mind. I think it's going to be real revolutionary. What do you think? Because I see chat talking about the digital, revolution, the all digital, which Walmart, Best Buy, like all these companies, the major retailers have said they're not going to be selling physical games anymore. Like
Right.
they're just cutting that out.
Right. Well, people
So what
always
do you
say,
think about that?
yeah, people always say they're like, I'm always going to buy hard copies, hard copies. I'm like, you are until you're not, because you are not in charge of if hard copies come to you. If the industry, even though PlayStation, Nintendo, and Xbox are against each other in the console wars, they're all
Yeah.
together making that $57 billion in the U.S. This past year. Right? They're all working with those together to get that capitalism of what it is to own a console, to get gamers to spend on accessories, consoles, video games, whatever it is. So if Sony, Nintendo, and Xbox get together and go, "Yep, this is the year we're not making physical copies anymore." What is GameStop, Target, Walmart, and any other place going to do? They're going to be like, "Okay, great, we're not getting any copies anymore. We're just selling digital codes," which the companies gave us. They gave us these cards that we're putting in the shelves that people can just scan the digital code in, right? It doesn't matter with Target or what we decide it is. The people that want to make the money, hence why the digital consoles are selling better than the actual consoles like the X with the disc drive.
My PS5 is all digital.
Yeah. And
It's like,
that's
all
what
right.
and that's why what's in stock. That's what I said this years ago before even S's and X's were even Series X and S were even announced, when they were
Yeah.
called the Anaconda and whatever, the Lockhart, whatever it was. I
Yeah,
said
yeah, yeah. I
I,
remember
I,
that.
I said that they're gonna have a system that's digital and not digital. They're gonna have a disk drive, and I said they're gonna have an SX or a digital S and a hard S with the disk drive, and X and digital X. And I said they're going to have the digital ones in stock, and the ones that are disk drive are going to be less in stock, because they want you to get the digital ones. Because once you get the digital, that's it. You are stuck in their ecosystem, and that's what they want, because they know once you have that digital library, it's going to be really
Yeah.
hard for you to switch over to the other
How
thing.
hard is it to switch from iPhone to Android?
Oh, it's
very hard.
it's a nightmare.
And,
It's a nightmare
yeah,
if you do
it's
it.
like, oh man, I want to, and then so you get locked in, and that's where when you see Phil Spencer come out and say, like, even if we were making like 11 out of 10 games, 11 out of 10 games,
Right.
it's like, yeah, you're going to move the needle a little bit, but you're not going to have this massive shift
Right.
into their ecosystem. They lost the worst generation that they could possibly lose, and that's when everything went all digital. But I think overall for gaming, that's going to be more beneficial because games are going to be in more places. People can play the games with their friends, and then it doesn't matter what their hardware is. And then we're going to see real competition actually creep in, and not artificial competition. Real competition is good games, good services, good, like price points. And so I do think, and I wouldn't be surprised if Xbox licenses out their Xbox OS and we see new hardware manufacturers. Imagine the Acer Rogue having the Xbox operating system, but then it still allows for your Steam games and these other games. You as a like the value proposition ends up being like, oh, that's something that's actually appealing to me as a gamer, that I'm not locked down. And I see chat talking about like, hey, what about my games that are in the Xbox ecosystem? What happens to them? Well, Xbox announced Play Anywhere and destroyed their exclusive. They have 0 exclusives, but what they do have is you buy a game on Xbox, you actually already have it
Right.
immediately on PC.
On PC.
Your saves are also immediately on PC. Like they actually have given you the most amount of freedom to walk away from them
Right.
at any point in time because you don't need an Xbox anymore. They
Right.
have devalued this
Yeah.
like the need for an
I'm-
Xbox.
I play on my Meta Quest, right? I play on my Meta
Right.
Quest. I'm playing on my Samsung TV. I'm playing wherever I want when I feel like it, right? On my phone. It's
Yeah.
to me, it's a no-brainer. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow, right? I know you're going to have your own show tomorrow and talk about it,
Yeah.
but before it even happens,
I'm excited.
right?
So I'm going to talk about the worst thing that could happen tomorrow.
Okay.
The worst thing that I think that the Xbox could do tomorrow is that they just say, yeah, a couple more games are going to go out to the PlayStation. And then they just leave it at that. I think that's the worst because immediately that, no matter what, signals that even more games are coming after that. And they don't have a follow-up as to what's the trade-off. Because that's, I think, what Xbox, the diehard fans, really want. What am I getting with this deal? Right? And I've, for the long time, thought a lot of their moves with acquisitions is for leverage, is to horse trade, saying, hey, Sony, we control all of these games that you make a lot of money on. What if, I don't know, we said after a year, we hand each other's games?
Hmm. You're doing
Why not?
You're doing the mob mentality. I like it.
I'm just saying, like, it's
Yeah, I got you.
leverage.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
marketplace leverage. Sony has had that because they have the sale through the consoles,
Sure.
and they've been using that to spend a lot of money locking down games and keeping it off the Xbox ecosystem. I don't know if they paid for Grand Blue Fantasy not to be on Xbox, but they might not have, but they maybe paid for it earlier down the line when they locked down Final Fantasy 16. And so the developers are like, well, this is where the players are. I'm going to make my game for the, because it's expensive to make these games, to hit have the
Right.
most potential buyers as possible, and that's why you see PS5 and PC. Xbox with their Play Anywhere, I think is the right move. Like I buy a game, I have that game, and it goes with me. Same thing with Steam. It's kind of it's kind of in that same nature. PlayStation took a little bit to catch up. Like I remember my PS3 stuff didn't translate to the PS4. Now more so, PS4 does translate onto the PS5, and it's essentially, and that's actually my biggest question about Nintendo. Will Nintendo respect my digital library with the Switch 2?
I think
They
will.
had bet her.
I think they will.
I think they have to.
Yeah, I think they will.
Otherwise, I think there will be a lot of blowback because why? Like, yes, they have exclusives. Yes, I will buy a Nintendo system for Nintendo games.
I think they will, but the trade-off is you would have to give them a subscription model. You see what I'm saying? Like, like you have your digital games over here, and they'll be like, oh yeah, all these games are over here, but you got to pay us, $10 a month or whatever it is to keep that access to that library, because you own that game digitally on the Switch 1. Now, if Switch 2 came out, they could say, oh yeah, you can play it over here, but it's part of our service and it's $10, right? That's the way they could do it.
I could see them doing that. I could see them charging an upscale fee, like, hey, we're gonna do a transfer fee. Like that's Nintendo and
Nintendo. I call it Nintendo, crazy Uncle Nintendo. Nintendo does whatever they feel like it because their software sales are just outrageous.
Yeah, and I think like Krebitz, Kremsy, sorry, I am dyslexic. Says that like if it doesn't respect it, they're gonna have a Wii U situation again. And I think that's one of the things that will be a big blowback for them. Yes, they'll sell. I want to play the new Mario game that they're making, but then, like I won't like that. That's going to be the hardest struggle for me because like I said earlier, like I keep handing them money and they keep doing the thing I don't want them to do. I'm the problem here.
Right.
I'm the problem.
I think tomorrow. I see. I'm not really shocked about what's happening right now with Microsoft. I've had the receipts. I have a podcast I've talked about. I said this to you earlier before we started the show. I've said from the very start that this is the plan for Microsoft to, and this is why I'm not shocked by it. So when they come out tomorrow, if they say that timed exclusives, Starfield's coming to PlayStation, but 1 year after, I would be like, yeah, okay, because when they bought Bethesda,
I'm gonna celebrate that.
Yeah,
like, that's one of those moments where like I'm going to yell and be like, yeah, because like that's I think a good thing for the game
for gamers. For gamers.
Yeah.
I'm not a loyalist. Yeah, I'm not a loyalist. I don't care about Xbox or PlayStation. I grew up with the Atari and PC, and every time a console came out, I bought that console. I've owned every console except the PlayStation 5. And the reason I don't own a PlayStation 5 is, well, I'm not made of money. And I
Yeah.
decided as a business, I said, I'm going to get a new graphics card for my computer instead of buying a PlayStation, because in longevity, that's a better, smarter business decision.
That better, yeah, it's
Yeah,
dollar for dollar. You're
yeah.
actually gonna get way more,
And now I'm just
especially
waiting.
because PlayStation publishes the games on PC.
Yeah, exactly. And now I'm just waiting for
Yeah.
the games I want to play, like Spider-Man. And I'm super excited that Helldivers came out on PC, because if it didn't, then I wouldn't have played it. I would have been watching on the outside going, that's not
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy a $500 system to play Helldivers, but I'll pay
Right.
$40 to play it on my PC, right? And
Right.
and they made more money that way. And a lot of people always say that, well, PlayStation's never going to go day and date. And then all of a sudden this year already, they went day and date with Foam Stars on PlayStation Plus, and right, and then they went day and date with PC with Helldivers 2. And now I don't think we're that far off for the next God of War, Spider-Man, when it comes out in 2025. They go day and date on PC because it's smart business. It's not about bleeding blue or bleeding green. It's smart business for the company.
And I still feel like Xbox's platform is Game Pass.
Absolutely.
They've stated that. Game Pass is our future. Game Pass is our platform. Game Pass. And beyond that service, whether it's you're playing those games for the cloud or not, beyond that service in and of itself, I think the ideal thing that could happen that it would really make me happy, and we'll see if it ends up, because it could be just like Krebsy is saying, where it could just be corpo talk with like if they're vague, if they're not really like, hey, yeah, we're gonna bring a handful of more games, but we really don't know. It's still gonna be a case by case. Just tell people what your plan is. Tell people where you're going. And yes, they might be mad at you in the short term, but then ultimately it's like, oh, cool, I can play my games on PlayStation.
Right.
Awesome. Oh, cool. Or, oh, I'm playing on PC anyway. This is great. Like, perfect. So I think the best case scenario is that, I hope these rumors are true, that they have the Surface team make and they have they do what I wish Nintendo did. Make a dedicated console, doesn't need a screen, it just hooks up to the TV.
Right.
And then make a handheld that is, because one of the things that, like,
You think they'll get in the handheld market?
Well, and by handheld, this is just a PC. Why would they let Acer and Steam and all these other companies make these PC handhelds that do everything, and then they come and say you can only play your Xbox here on this handheld? Now, I asked J-Dub if the Sony Stream Portal or whatever, the PlayStation Portal, also allowed for other apps like GeForce Now, and he says they don't. And I was like, that's disappointing. I would buy that device because, like, the PlayStation controller feels better, and how it's laid out on the PlayStation Portal, I was like, that sounds great, but I'm not going to buy a one-off device because I have a device that does it all.
Right.
So while I wish that it had these, like these controllers on the side, or an Xbox, like something more meaty, like the Portal, that's what I'm hoping for the Xbox. And and then essentially it literally is like, again, that would tie into, if you want to run Steam, cool. You just install it, install your games. We don't care. Like, we're not going to sit here and fight over pennies when we could be just raking it in.
Right.
And the value proposition is that, imagine if they make a really good piece of hardware that feels really good, that competes with the Rogue and all these. They have their store, they have the other stores on there, and then you just play your games. And then guess what? If they classify the Xbox as a PC, which is what Sony tried to do with the PS3, they tried to classify it as a PC for tax reasons. They let you install another operating system on it. Xbox already runs Windows, free Windows. Open it up to let you play your games. And yes, it's not going to be as powerful. That's why I think the next version is going to be that console cloud hybrid as well. So it can draw down power from the cloud and you can still run things locally. So I think that's truly going to be like revolutionary, but that's going to be an always online product, all digital. That's just where we're going.
That's the future.
And so, like, all of that, I think, would be the biggest win for Microsoft. And people won't understand it, but it's just going to be, because naturally there's the curve of acceptance and grief. They're going to be angry, then they're going to be sad, and then they're going to be like, oh, wait a minute, this is actually really good for me, because now I have more money to spend on games, and I'm not sitting here going like, this, that, or the other thing. And yeah, they have their hardware. I don't know. The one question that I want, if they do go that direction and just say, you know what, we're just classifying this as a PC now, we're not going to restrict you. PlayStation can play Xbox games and has played Xbox games already through the cloud. They then found out and said, hey, let's not do that. But if they open that up, you don't even have to port your game. It's
Right.
just there. You can just play it if you have the internet. And that in and of itself, I think is one of those revolutionary technologies that people are still skeptical of. But when the phones came out, we didn't know what kind of impact it would have. Years
Right.
later, we look at it now and we're like, how do we
Yeah.
even live?
How do we live without this? Yeah.
How do we live without this? I look at it and it's so funny to me because my dad lost his mom when he was young. She passed away when he was 12, and my mom's dad was an alcoholic. So they both came from these, tragic and broken homes. They found each other and they made me, and they didn't have Google. And I don't know why I'm alive because, like, holy crap.
Right.
I, as a parent, have both of my parents and both of my wife's parents and Google. And so,
Right.
yeah, like, oh, what's this? Should I look this up? Do we, and so as a parent, I feel like I am armed to the teeth with a lot of really good information and a lot of really bad information. And it's just my job of sifting it out and trying to
Right.
figure out what works the best.
Yeah. That's funny though. That's how they met.
Yeah, and that's a joke. That's a joke I'm working on. I haven't done it in the in a club yet, and I'm still working on the writing of it. So I like to test things out on the live streams, and I like to have a little fun. Like like because it's stories, right? Like
Yeah.
like I try to take things that happen to me in real life. Like I had a bunch of kids. They had all this broken glass, and they like pushed me down. On it and got me cut up, almost killed me. So I went to the hospital. I still have the scars. Like I was like a millimeter away from it hitting the artery and would have killed me. And so I remember this story. And so I have a very dark joke that's kind of associated with it about it because, like, oddly or unfortunately enough, one of the kids who was a part of that attack on me when I was young, he passed away. He drowned a year later. And so then I go, well, I guess we know who God loves more. And so it's like it is just like a dark joke, and it's
I looked at my
but it's
coffee
true, but it's
before.
also
I looked at my
yeah.
coffee before you said. I was like, should I drink this while he's saying this? Is something
Dude,
gonna?
I love getting people to spit take, dude. It's a goal. Like it's like I at dinners I'm like always waiting to see like,
I was like, God
all
damn
right,
it.
take a drink. Yeah, so but yeah, it's like I think again, like back to that, it's like there shouldn't be anything off limits. How can I make this funny? Yes, this is unnecessarily dark. Where does it fit in? Because one of the things people say is like, I'll be telling like these very wholesome stories and we will cut to Hitler. It's just like, we will take a hard cut, like, and Hitler was only married for a day. What a pussy, it's like, couldn't even stand it for a day. I've been married for 13 years. Like, and he couldn't even make it a day before he blew his brains out. What a pussy.
Did you get married in 2010?
I got married in 2010, so this will be 14 years
Yeah,
this year.
same as me. When did you get? When's your anniversary?
January.
Oh, so you just passed.
12th?
Mine's July. Mine's
No,
in
no,
July.
no. June to the 12th. June the 12th.
Oh,
Because and then and then years later, then Maddie was born. So Maddie, my daughter, she'll be 10 this year, June the 17th, which is nice.
that's crazy. My son
It's
turns
dark,
10.
but it's good. And then it's all of says it's dark, but it's good. It is good, and it's like, but it's true. Like it like that
It's a good joke.
literally happened to me, and then it's like, yeah. So Thank you.
Speaking of a good joke, when Christopher Judd came out and made that Call of Duty joke, I thought it was perfect. I thought it was a perfect joke when he made fun of Call of Duty because only he could say that joke because of his speech last year as a setup of long, drawn out stuff. And he's like, well, my speech is still longer than the actual campaign of Call of Duty. I was like, that's a good joke, man. And people gave him shit for it. One more question for you, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. Tomorrow for Sea of Thieves, right? I think Sea of Thieves comes out on PlayStation.
It's a multiplayer game. That's a good move.
But here's why
Even
I think
if
it's coming out.
Multiplayer games, it's a good move.
I think it's coming out, and I said this earlier in my stream. I think it's coming out because Microsoft is trying to screw over Skull and Bones. I think that it's coming out, and
Have you played Skull and Bones?
I have. I played 4.5 hours of it, and I was just like, It made me want to go play Sea of Thieves. Okay. So I was like, it's such a interesting game, but I don't want to be a boat, right? That's what it is. I'm a boat, and I don't want to be a boat. I want to get off that boat, and I want to do stuff. And when you're off the boat, you're just in a menu system. Basically, you're on an island and going around doing this stuff.
You talk to this menu and you talk to that menu, right?
And I think it'll find people, and people will like it. But I think,
well, I mean, the water mechanic, like, and doing the cannon battles and stuff like that, like that was really cool. And it was like, and so There's some redeeming qualities. I don't know if it's got
I
legs.
in my head, because Call of Duty, Skull and Bones and Sea of Thieves were supposed to come out both in 2018, and Skull and Bones got delayed. Sea of Thieves came out, so they won that battle. It's like Overwatch versus Battleborn, right? And now Skull and Bones is coming out on Friday,
Yeah.
and Xbox is announcing something tomorrow, the day before Skull and Bones comes out, and I guarantee you, Sea of Thieves is coming out on PlayStation 5 because of the update they just did for Sea of Thieves. Is very new player friendly. And why would they do that 5 years into the making of this game if there wasn't going to be a slew of new people coming into this game?
Exactly.
I think they're trying to screw over. So, one, do you think Sea of Thieves gets announced tomorrow for PlayStation 5?
I hope it does. I'm expecting it to, and that's where I think the biggest misstep they could make tomorrow is caging. Oh, we're thinking about it, right? No, give me a date. Like say, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it. And I think that actually benefits the Xbox brand because they're a diehard. The people on PlayStation is like, I've never played an Xbox game, or those aren't kind of my kind of games. It's like they have such a massive catalog that yeah, just bring it to anybody. Let people play, and I'm perfectly fine with single player games. But what needs to be answered, in my opinion, is what are the diehard Xbox fans getting in return?
Day and date.
What
they're going to get still.
they'll get day and date. I think Game Pass is going to be the exclusive on the console in and of itself. So yeah, you can buy your game over there, or you can play it as a part of Game Pass over here. I think that essentially would be a value proposition. I think maybe it ends if it's a timed exclusive mindset, that's fine. But then a lot of people will be like, I'm fine with waiting. We'll let them beta test the game, and when it comes out to PlayStation, it's ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, but
marketing
people really like to get on things early. That's why they charge 3 days early access or 5 days early access for to get the extra cash.
And I honestly I get it. I don't blame them. As a content creator, it means I'm already spending the money anyway because it's like I want to make sure that I can make the talk to you guys about the stuff I'm excited about. But if they do a half measure, I think that's going to be the worst case scenario for them because then it just communicates that more games are going to come, and if you don't know what games are going to come, why are you going to invest in their ecosystem? I think they classify personally the PlayStation as their ecosystem. They classify all that as their ecosystem, and so they just want people playing their games.
Wherever you are, however you want to play, you play it the way you want.
Yeah, play anywhere. Like when you start to think about what they like, how it first was implemented with the Xbox, but it's a mission statement. It's a mission statement that they made, and it's been frustrating and I understand people's frustration with where they're not getting exclusives, but I think this is just the natural evolution that we've been headed towards. And ultimately, I think gamers are going to benefit greatly because if we're not like there is no equivalent to a Mario game anywhere. Yes, there's platformers, but there's no equivalency. And so this is a thing that I got Lono. He was making some arguments because he was getting mad at me because I was in chat just having fun with him. But I made the argument that video game IP is like a natural monopoly or preferred monopoly. And those are different, and video games themselves are classified, should be thought of as classified monopolies differently than anything else. And Lono went on this thing saying, like, are you saying Burger King's a monopoly? I'm not saying food. I'm saying video games has a special place. We get attached to them. They're like relationships we have. Zelda, think about that. Just think about, it sold insane on the Switch. I think it would have sold even more insane numbers if it was in more places. But these IPs that we get attached to, we rally around. They become where people want to be, right? Just like with social media.
Right.
That's why you don't see a true competitor to Twitter, despite everybody quitting Twitter and then staying on the platform, because that's where the people are, right?
Right.
And these platforms aren't like, now there's Twitter too, and we all have to migrate. No, that migration, same thing with MMORPGs. It's just like you don't get that jump. They thought people were going to all jump from Final Fantasy 11 to Final Fantasy 14. It didn't happen. And so you lose people. It's like an energy transfer, right? Every time we have to change energy from one thing to the next, we lose a bunch of energy doing it. And it's the same thing with consoles. And so I think essentially when we look at IP, it's like, I think it's the next battle is just going to be a battle of who owns the IP. Right. We've seen Embracer gobble up a lot. They've been struggling, but they also haven't been selling off the IP.
I call them embracive because they basically they just destroy everything.
You got Tencent, you got like these, Amazon. Amazon has bought up a lot of IP. It's like I think essentially
Netflix is making some moves. Netflix is making some moves.
Netflix. Yeah,
Apple.
and so it's Apple's really interesting because my dad keeps asking me who's they going to buy. I think Apple could buy Disney, and I think they might because Disney's has a debt problem,
Yeah,
and they also have a
I think
can't make a good movie problem.
I think it cost like 124 billion for Disney. I think it cost that much because
Probably.
Elon Musk was making a joke that he might buy them, and
Huh? Yeah, I don't care. Just start making good movies, man. And we'll
exactly.
go
Just
go
make
back to the
content.
movies. That's the thing when people talk about like the superhero fatigue. It's like I think it's just bad movie fatigue. Like
Yeah,
look at Guardians of the Galaxy 3,
bad writing and
an
stuff. Yeah,
absolute banger.
I loved
And
all
that's
the Guardian movies. Yeah, they were all good.
oh well, and that's also like I'm a big James Gunn fan, and he's so good at what he does. And the thing he talks about is that the Marvel process is they'll finish the script while they don't even have the full vision for the movie
Yep.
when they start making the movie. And he's not doing that over at DC. And I'm really excited to see what this new DCU is. And I'm really looking forward to watching the Superman movie when he releases it. Because I really appreciate his work and I hope that he does really well. But I do think that regardless of if you're, "Oh, I'm tired of superhero movies." I was like, they haven't been the best superhero movies. They haven't done anything really special. And I'm really looking forward to them to do that. And I really think Deadpool has the opportunity to really kind of reset the clock. But it's still going to take a little bit of time for Disney because movies take years and years to make, just like video games take years and
Yeah.
years and years to make.
Well, the movie process itself doesn't take years and years, but the filming part, but the prep part and getting all the stuff together, that takes the years, and then just the contracts and stuff they have to get through, and that's
Visual effects now.
That's it. Yeah,
Excuse me.
I think it's a good stopping point right there. Ginger, thank you very much for coming out and hanging out with us here for 2 hours talking about yourself and the gaming process, the comedy process. Tell everyone in this chat where they can find you.
Don't worry about following me, guys. Just be good to one another. I would say, if anything else, I'm not here to promote myself. The one message that I really want people to start to hear to is that there's a lot of frustration when I see people talk about layoffs and all of these things. Those are facts of life. And the best way you can control that, yes, people will talk about maybe we could do this or maybe we get some collective bargaining. Great, do that. But take care of yourself first. And the best way you can do that is get out of debt. If you have debt, that's going to hang over you. If you don't, you're actually going to get paid more. There's this real weird thing. These companies want you in debt because that makes you cheaper, because you're going to be willing to do more and take less because you need that job. As soon as you get out of that, all of a sudden, you'll start to see your salary rise. You'll start realizing just how free you can be. And that's just what I want people to take away from anything that ever I put out, in that regards. Pay off your debts, guys. Be free. Thank you very much for your time. That was my TED Talk.
Thank you very much. That was awesome. Yeah, guys, you can follow me right here on 30NSG. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out, and appreciate you guys' time for taking your time out of your day to watch us as we talk. So you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.
Bye.